Holy shit, I forgot Steve used to wear fedoras.
Look, I don't want to just be watching videos to dredge up problematic shit. All these guys are really far from this point these days. But support, nay, open endorsement, something like PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale is something I think Joe and Lee need to address and to rescind.
Sitting in my computer chair shitting myself knowing that Joe Bereta interviewed a young Agent O from Men in Black 3.
Much like the fool saint poet Dante. Early on in my journey, I thought it was free from damnation when Trisha appears, filling in for Joe in 20 minutes or less 123. But alas, the hope was false. I tread Navidson-like into the infinite house.
The SourceFed movie club is a really cool idea, but early SourceFed fans were kind of cringe.
They've begun making jokes about the sheer amount of videos they've made. I'm only on 240. They're taunting me. They can see me.
It was all kind of cringe, wasn't it?
Hershberger taunts me yet again. Is she laughing at me? Is God laughing at me? Wouldn't any being laugh were they to witness my helpless wriggling on this mortal coil? Perhaps I'm the only one crazy enough not to.
3 of their first 500 videos contain the words big boobs in the title. Big boobs prevent death. Big boobs get lady fired. Big boobs banned on plane.
At the end of 388, Elliott says, "We'll see you again." If only he knew the hours I have spent staring into his eyes. His eyes streamed into mine, having been eternally etched into the memory core of a computer thousands of miles away, never to age, never to change, into mine, always growing older, more tired. I am different now from what I started this podcast as. I feel like I've been here for so long.
One could find solace from Keith in times like these.
Trisha! 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 Trisha!
The internet was once a barren place, a bad land, the source of much suffering and the source of many a resource, fed by its unlawful tenders answerable to few, to bring those outside it all that it might have to offer. They were braver, they were stronger than you and me, like the sons of God, the Nephilim. They trod where no others could, as giants among men on the terrain of the early digital world. They were the best of us, they were the worst of us, and somehow nothing that lieth betwixt. Yet even the reign of the greatest kings must come to an end. See their kingdoms crumble, their cattle scatter, even whence they become just a voice from the outer world. As we unearth the past remnants, source and resource them, we learn of, but not from, their many follies and triumphs. All things end. Even stars burn out. I have now here a quote from a notable trekker of the digital Badlands, John Green. Red giants are common. It is common for stars to grow larger and engulf their once habitable solar systems. It is no wonder we worry about the end of the world, for worlds end all the time. A 2012 survey conducted across 20 countries found wide variance in the percentage of people who believe humanity will end within their lifetime. In France, 6% of those polled did. In the United States, 22%. This makes a kind of sense. France has been home to apocalyptic preachers. The Bishop Martin of Tours, for instance, wrote, "There is no doubt that the Antichrist has already been born, but that was back in the 4th century. American apocalypticism has much more recent history, from Shaker predictions the world would end in 1794 to famed radio evangelist Harold Camping's calculations that the apocalypse was coming in 1994. And then, when that didn't happen, in 1995. Camping went on to announce that the end times would commence on May 21st, 2011, after which would come 5 months of fire, brimstone, and plagues of the earth, with millions of people dying each day, culminating on October 21st, 2011, with the final destruction of the world. When none of this came to pass, Camping said, "We humbly acknowledge we were wrong about the timing. although, for the record, no individual ever humbly acknowledged anything while referring to themselves as we. I'm reminded of something my religion professor Donald Rogan told me once. Never predict the end of the world. You're almost certain to be wrong, and if you're right, no one will be around to congratulate you. Endings come as most often, assuredly, as beginnings do. But with any long-lasting era comes a source of comfort and certainty. Fed as we were by the brave, strong hands, the idea that they should wither was inconceivable. But stars do not wither. They grow, and they collapse. Once again, the Cowboy Green says, in the spring of 2020, a few weeks after the emergence of the novel coronavirus began to shut schools and clear out grocery stores in the United States, someone sent me a collection they'd made of times I'd publicly mentioned my fear of an infectious disease pandemic. On the podcast 10 Things That Scare Me, I listed near the top a global disease pandemic that will result in the breakdown of human norms. Years earlier, in a video about world history, I'd speculated about what might happen if some superbug shows up tomorrow and it travels all these global trade routes. In 2019, I'd said on a podcast, we all must prepare ourselves for the global pandemic we all know is coming. And yet, I did nothing to prepare. The future, even in its inevitabilities, always feels vague and nebulous to me, until it doesn't. It is always those who seem as though they will be around forever, whose ends are most swift, most cutting to our gentle, submissive little hearts, bringing us down in one fell swoop, aching for a source of love in their absence, to be fed and held once more. But alas, this story happened a long time ago, in California, which for me, and probably you, is very far away. It already happened. Nothing can be done to change it. We can excavate. We can learn. When did you see how vast their era would be? When did you finally partake enough that you could relish in the splendor of the epoch of the cowboy? When did you feel that mighty hand against your back? What brought you here, now? And when did you first learn of SourceFed?
Welcome back to Digital Cowboys, the only series on this channel. Today's trailblazers are news and entertainment company SourceFed, specifically the first 6 months of their existence from January 2012 through June of the same year. Phillip DeFranco, known now as phillip or as SXE Phil at the time, was paid to create and run the channel by YouTube's original channel initiative, which was a very short-lived program that also funded the Fine Bros My Music. The idea behind the channel was an idea by phillip to split his news segments into separate videos, but audience testing for this was poor, so he just, started a whole company to make other people do it. The teaser for the channel was released on December 19, 2011, at which point they already had over 50,000 subscribers, up to over 75,000 before their release of the next video, a more in-depth announcement on January 16, 2012. SourceFed was pitched with 3 different series in mind. The celebrity/rumor news White Walls, hosted by Elliott Morgan, Lee Newton, Joe Bereta, and sometimes Phillip DeFranco himself. The short-lived game show Curb Cash, hosted by Kevin Bruick. And a celebrity interview series called One on One that would be hosted by one of any 3 of the White Wall hosts.
I forgot about fucking Curb Cash. It's like a bald nigga, right?
Who are you talking about, Kevin?
Yeah.
Kevin Bruick? Nah.
No, am I thinking of Cash Cab?
You're thinking of Cash Cab as fuck now. Yeah. The first White Wall videos were released the week of January 23rd, 2012. White Walls took place Monday through Thursday, and Friday and the weekends were reserved for commentary, behind-the-scenes bloopers, etc. The White Walls originally possessed the title of 20 minutes or less because the collective uploads of a given day's 5 White Walls were meant to total less than 20 minutes.
Curb
Cash. What?
You
didn't know that?
It took me so long. I was at least at 300 and something before I realized that's what the deal was.
Curb Cash was not well received whatsoever and was canceled and scrubbed from the channel very early on. They swept it under the rug pretty quietly and never really acknowledged it, but my theory is that people didn't like watching a series that required a desktop computer just to navigate multiple annotations. It was so abrupt and quiet that I couldn't be sure it wasn't canceled because Kevin was a rapist until his appearance in the behind-the-scenes Office Ninja video. The early days also consisted of 2 short-lived movie series, although they were both called The New Movie Thing Show. The New Movie Thing Show consisted of late White Wall hire Steve Zaragoza and Phillip DeFranco reviewing movies on their opening weekends, with Phil rating the movies based on how he would have paid to view them in retrospect, and Steve, who was normally wearing a fedora, rating the movies from 0 to 5 Ewok hugs. The SourceFed Movie Club, which was also called The New Movie Thing Show, consisted of opinions from random members of the cast, as well as fan-submitted opinions, and was edited like a regular movie club circle. We've already seen all of those that they ever will and had recorded.
Those are done.
Those are done.
Wow.
So
No fanfare
we watched,
or nothing either.
No fanfare, nothing.
Yeah.
We watched
They
the
just
first
go
6
away.
months. Of the game. They made like 4 each, and then they all disappeared forever.
There is a surprising amount of dropped threads with the SourceFed stuff. And evidently with an entire host. Which is wild to me.
It's like they were allergic to letting their fans know what was happening. Like if you look in like the early SourceFed subreddit, a lot of it was like, what happened to Curb Cash? Where's Kevin? and
then the
they
ninja
never
thing is
fucking
his
said
what, his
anything.
final appearance? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shit. We saw him every once in a while because he was a producer, and he would just kind of be around holding a laptop while other people ran around with a camera, like bothering people at their desks and shit.
That is a lot of SourceFed characters.
Like it would there would be one random guy in the comments, like Steve Zaragoza himself or something, be like, "Yeah, we just didn't like it anymore, so we quit doing that shit." Sorry.
I feel like that used to be how hosts would go away too. Like you remember Ross?
I was gonna say I don't want to get into it yet. We're a bit early.
Yeah.
But there was Ross Everett, the host that just stopped appearing one day. How the fuck am I gonna make this good? By the episode you and I stopped watching on roughly 520, SourceFed had about 460,000 subscribers, which is almost a quarter of their peak that they ever had before they ended.
Wow.
6 months, they were 25% of the way there.
Is there precedent for that? Have we
I'd
seen
love
that
to
done?
look into like that, because like I feel like that's very common for now. You have a creator make like one famous TikTok, and then all of a sudden they have 10 million followers, and it's the most they'll ever have again because they're never that good again.
Right?
You
Yeah,
know, but,
because
like,
it's mostly happenstance.
especially for early YouTube. Like, you know, SourceFed kind of had an advantage because Phillip DeFranco had an established fan group already. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be spearheading this channel that YouTube is going to be paying for, the first of its kind," and so he had a built-in audience immediately. And he found all these marketable 2012, you know, younger than 30 white people, and they all fell in love with it. And so you automatically kind of have a recipe for success just because it's already the Phillip DeFranco formula, just spread out over more videos with new people so that he's not spreading himself too thin. Because all he's got to do is be there and tell them to make sure they cover both sides, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, which is so fucking crazy. Some of the, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it later, but some of the both sidesing of SourceFed is just buck wild, and some of it is like, you know, surprisingly tactful.
Do you have any particular examples of the buck wild stuff?
If I would open my notes, I might be able to.
I'm going to give you a chance while I talk about mine because there's one that bugs me a lot.
Please do.
I have a section in my notes specifically called the covering of both sides because I really wanted to talk about this.
Sick.
I think that it was an intentional draw of the early days. Like something that Phil kind of sold the idea of SourceFed on.
Well, I think that when it comes to internet news, that was the big thing, right? Because when you have corporatized news, they've always been sort of deliberately polarizing and polarized.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole appeal for SourceFed, I feel like, was that they are going to do that it's somehow unbiased because it's not under some corporate thumb, which is obviously objectively untrue, but that's not really how it's sold to people. And
also, within a year and a half, they were going to be under the corporate thumb anyways. Us getting ahead of ourselves, but, you know, Phillip did not control this for a long time. And when he didn't, it was fucking Warner Brothers that did, you know? And so...
Yeah, it does get corporate pretty quick, you're right.
But they did keep that formula. I actually, there's something I want to talk about way later down the line when we get further into this. I think that they are digging their own grave with the early precedent of covering both sides. Because they're not covering both sides in a way that, like,
anyone can listen. Like, there are times when I feel like they're covering both sides in a way that, like, you can be a radical, like, you know, like, bigot and still watch this, you know?
Yeah. And like, I think part of that was... No, go ahead. Continue.
There's a time later that I'll go ahead and talk about. I feel like we shouldn't just ignore the future like it didn't happen, even if we want to save these things more in depth for a later video.
Yeah, maybe if we just take an explanatory approach to it to not totally confound.
Yeah, like there's no reason to lock ourselves. This is just what we've studied. There's a video in about 2016, I think, called SourceFed State of the Union. And it's Matt Lieberman and one of the producers at the time apologizing for the way that they covered a particular video. The video in question was a white wall that Matt and Bree Essrig did. These are both hosts that would come much later beyond what we've
hosts
watched.
Hosts of the future.
About Milo Yiannopoulos and some things that he had tweeted directed at Leslie, what's her fucking name from Ghostbusters 2016?
I do not remember her name.
He said some fucked up shit to her.
Yeah, he said some crazy ass shit.
And got banned from Twitter. And Bree Essrig said it was fucked up shit. And the comments on that video are so awful and vitriolic that how dare we, you know, witness you not cover both sides and just attack Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't...
Famous, horrible asshole.
Yeah.
That's why he's famous. That's what got him famous. Like, that's his whole deal.
Is that he is a son of a bitch. And
yeah, and then his followers are like, how dare you acknowledge that this controversial man is controversial? How dare you, like, express displeasure with this guy who is famous for saying displeasing shit?
To the point where they had to release a video apologizing to their vocally right-wing audience for disparaging Milo Yiannopoulos. And I think that the roots of this are seen pretty early. There's a video in the first 500 that we've watched called North Carolina Bans Gay Marriage.
Yeah.
This was discussing North Carolina Amendment 1 from back in 2012, where essentially there were weird custody ideas with people who were not straight married people. And the whole video is spent discussing how shitty its implications are, not only on gay couples, but unmarried straight couples, but ends with Lee Newton saying, it's definitely a hot button issue with reasons to support it and reasons to not, and loads of gray area. Feel free to check out Phil's point of view on the Phillip DeFranco show. Which comes across to me as so disingenuous. Because
it's crazy apologia.
Yeah, there's no mention up to that point of any reason to support North Carolina Amendment 1 until someone, and I will say there is a commentary Q&A, which commentary, if you didn't know, was a series they did at the end of every week where they read comments from videos that they had done, just responding to them and answering questions and making Lee Newton read out thirst traps or
crazily,
like
wildly
thirsty messages about her
every time.
Yeah, it was
Every
crazy
time.
what they did to that woman. But they say that they write all their own scripts, that they are the script writers. But I just have a hard time believing that at this time, and you know, we had mentioned not to dredge up old shit. I'm not trying to disparage anyone, just an observation I made about these people as an honest news source at the time. I have a hard time believing...
This is the mission. This is journalism.
Yeah, that this like group of seemingly left-leaning young people wrote the line reasons to support it and reasons to not in relation to that particular amendment to the North Carolina Constitution. Especially, and I'm not pointing any fingers or naming any names, the bit at the end that says, feel free to check out Phil's point of view on the Phillip DeFranco show.
Right?
So I ask you, was it really free of a corporate thumb?
Yeah, I suppose that's a misnomer on my part.
No, I think it's a misnomer on the way that they present it.
Well, yeah, they frame themselves as one thing, but they are, and I mean, isn't that the great folly of like all media reporting?
Especially one where like one guy's interests are, it kind of like, whether that be like Phillip DeFranco, who just kind of has his name tied to this thing, but YouTube's paying for it,
Yeah.
or like the CEO of Fox News. Like it goes from little to a lot, where it's like,
Yeah, and it gets big fast. It gets really high up the ladder really quickly as far as what moral purview we're putting out publicly. And it becomes, from a journalistic standpoint, completely morally bankrupt very fast, I would say.
because like the draw of SourceFed to me, and I'll be honest about it, was never the news. It was never the reason that
at first, for me, it was.
Really?
Yeah, at first, it was, well, we'll get into the first SourceFed video I clicked on later, because I do have notes about that. But the news is what hooked me, I will say.
And like, that is the majority of their content. Like,
Yeah.
5 videos a day, and then maybe 3 on the
To
weekends.
the
that aren't
chagrin
that.
of anybody watching 10 years from now.
Yeah, fuck. Just hearing about all these current events from literally 12 years ago now is crazy shit.
Yeah.
Because what's the funniest thing to me is most of the shit I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Most of these things that are happening, I either remember happening and completely forgot about because they didn't matter, or I just didn't hear about it at all.
Yeah, so much of it becomes instantaneously irrelevant, which really reveals the inner workings of the machine in a big way, I think.
Because it's not about, when you're making that much news in one day, when you're making 5 news videos every day, you're not going to spend a lot of time covering shit that actually matters. Sometimes you're going to have days about big boobs save lives, not allowed on airplanes.
Yeah.
But I still, even going back and watching, and even watching it at the time, the news was not the biggest part of it. It was always the big cast. There's a quote from Mike Calzone, who is a later host of SourceFed that I like a lot. He called it the SNL of YouTube. And I always really, really like that idea. It's just that most of the SNL was Weekend Update. And
Yeah.
if you don't love the Weekend Update, especially when the Weekend Update is very not scathing and sometimes maybe mentions the support of homophobic amendments to North Carolina's Constitution, it kind of pushes you away from that in a way that makes you feel like it's not as independent as it would have you believe.
Yeah. And I don't want to come, I want it, because SourceFed is so inseparable from its hosts. SourceFed as something that is good is its hosts. I really do think that that's the only reason SourceFed became really notable. But if you strip away all the personality from SourceFed and you look at what they are doing and what the goal is, it's nothing. It's BuzzFeed. It's not anything. There's not any interesting take, and there's no way on this kind of scale to be a journalist with integrity in that field in this way.
No, because
You
it's always
can't
other
really-
people's news.
Exactly.
It's like, we read this and now we're telling you what we read. And they always do that. They have always
and they
acknowledged
denote it.
But it's still it's not a journalistic practice in the way you would imagine most news sites to be. I think it's more of if you want to know what TMZ reported on today, but you want someone interesting and
you don't want
charismatic to tell you about it.
Yeah, you're too, for me at the time, you have too much of an ego to go to TMZ, right? But you also are just as interested as everybody else is in stupid bullshit that everyone's going to forget in 20 minutes.
Or less.
Or less. It could be less. It quickly became apparent to me that there's really no way to do this kind of thing with this much moneyed interests that isn't cowardly. That fucking, like, we're not talking about common commentary, but like the stuff they say in common commentary, right? And the reason I sort of eventually ended up abandoning the main SourceFed channel and just sticking with its spin-offs is because the 20 minutes or less is inherently devoid of character. And you can feel the host pushing up against that every time.
It's disposable.
All the time. Yeah. It's disposable. It's meaningless. It will be worth nothing tomorrow. This is for the algorithm. And the algorithm decides when it lives and dies. There isn't any room for these big personalities. Mm-hmm. And, well, there is, but they're sort of hemmed in. They're like a unicorn in a fence, you know? I think
there's a lot of stifling on the part of, you know, like I said, I think the way I really want to word it is like their attempt to make it not biased inherently makes it biased towards an unbiased individual.
And how cowardly is it to still frame it as unbiased? How insane is it to still have this narrative that it's just like these 5 motherfuckers and fucking Darren Von Gardner running around and getting the real news, you know? And like, there's a fucking quote. Are we late in, or are we in enough to pull notes out?
Oh yeah, I do want to say at this point, yeah, I think it's important to mention that you and I both adore this channel and things
let's get that off the bat. I love these people. I love what they managed to do, and I don't think it's necessarily reflective of their moral character. Uh-huh. The fact that this is their job and this is what they had to do, right? These are interests above their pay grade, and this is stuff that I know for a fact later on in SourceFed's life they do try to fight against to certain degrees. And SourceFed's not fucking around anymore. We kind of know how that ended up.
Yeah. I do think it's important to mention that, like, how much we do genuinely adore these people. An early part of our friendship together was bonding over our sadness post SourceFed ending.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I wanted to emphasize the loss and the idea of sudden destruction of norms.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, SourceFed was a norm. SourceFed was something I watched all of the time. Every day, I thought about these people all the time, and I was excited to see them. And then you see where it comes from, and you see, you know, with a more mature eye, of course, because I mean, I was watching from pretty early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were.
And so,
yeah, hey, my cat just got done taking a fat shit. I thought you were fucking ready. That's why I walked us back in. That's why I did the re-intro.
Here we go. 327. 327 on the SourceFed. We broke it down. We built it back up again. We redefined media.
Who said that? Elliott Morgan?
George Watsky. White guy they brought in to rap the news.
Dude, that was some crazy
making
shit.
Things rhyme. Did you watch that one?
I didn't watch the White Wall, but I watched his one-on-one.
Okay, yeah, I forgot he had a one-on-one as well. The White Wall, let me tell you.
Okay.
No hate to George Watsky. I hate that shit. It sucks. It's bad. I don't like it. It's just, I don't even remember what the fuck he's rapping about. It's some dumb fucking thing that happened that everybody forgot about 20 minutes after it happened, or less. And, like, the gall, the audacity to be the white guy they got in to rap the news. Mm-hmm. And be like, we're redefining media right now.
Yeah.
We're changing some shit. They didn't change a damn thing. First of all, they're under a corporate thumb from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I didn't really fully, see. But it recolors the whole thing in a way that now it makes complete fucking sense what's going on with SourceFed, right? Where you're like, oh, okay. It was kind of, when it comes to the white walls and the perspective that the white walls are from, it's this amalgamate bullshit that corporations are always trying to push on you. Mm-hmm. This sort of false dichotomy they're obsessed with. And I sound so smart. And like it's infuriating to me. And I'm sure, I imagine as a fan, we must feel similar to a host, right? From my perspective and my notes, I'm very focused on the hosts, not only because that's, what's most important, I think, to SourceFed success.
Especially at
but
this
also,
point.
Definitely at this point. But also, I think, just the feelings I'm having watching in real time much faster than you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. The evolution of SourceFed, the shifting of the politics of SourceFed, and they will shift in a major way in the future, dear viewer. They shift in an interesting way.
The last SourceFed video, the very last one, is
oh my god, dude.
SourceFed.
That might be the best one.
Dude, when they tried pole dancing, they wouldn't have done that in 2012.
Absolutely, no, because everybody would have called him gay.
Everyone would have called him gay. He's not gay. Yeah. He's deeply closeted.
He would never admit that because he's deeply closeted, And I also think the return of Elliott, which is something we're going to get in the future, I think that's a political shift.
I think it's a big thing that, I think kind of post SourceFed State of the Union, they push off their, their more conservative viewership at that point and kind of go ahead and pivot towards being a little more accepting of other people's cultures and opinions and sexuality, which is cool.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around the time they stopped making lists of hot women. I think that's what it was.
Okay, yeah, that was probably a good time to quit doing that.
And it tells you a lot about the state of the internet as well, because the internet did fully buy into the whole "this is not biased."
Oh yeah, I mean, this is such a I have a note somewhere that I'm not going to bother to pull up, but this is a huge time capsule of what the this is just what the internet was like. This is what popular internet was like.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to emphasize that. I'm not trying to vilify this corporation specifically even. What I'm really trying to say is that the corporatization of the internet at this time was well underway. And the sort of deliberate manipulation of quote-unquote individual politics was also a big piece of the machine that SourceFed had to work within.
And it was cringe.
It was really cringe. It was really silly and goofy. It sucked.
Dude, really. Gangnam Style was happening.
Gangnam Style was happening, and I don't remember a reference to Gangnam Style.
I think we're a month early for Gangnam Style.
Oh, are we? Okay, that makes sense.
Let's find out right now. We're gonna do some Gangnam Googling.
I can't do
Dude,
that.
You did it great. You're gonna get us fucking demonetized right now.
Thank you. I'm really good at that. I used to know
know
all the lyrics in fucking Korean.
No, you did not.
Yeah,
try them right now.
Lying.
Oh, dude, literally, our last video was fucking. Holy shit.
No, it wasn't.
Please calm down.
Do not fuck that shit, kids.
Please calm down. The last video we watched was the one-on-one with Julian Jacobs, which I think is an important one to stop on because that's the first time that they actually went on One Day Famous Person, which is...
Yeah, they've moved up a rung at that point.
They went to a supporting cast member on Community, and that rules. The last video we watched was June 30th, 2012. Gangnam Style was released July 15th, 2012. So
wow,
we fully missed it.
Okay, so yeah,
by
we're right up to it.
When in our next one, in our next SourceFed Digital Cowboys video, we will cover Gangnam Style era SourceFed.
Do you think there's going to be a shift there? Because I remember being a little boy, and people would come up to you and they'd be like, Psy hates America.
Dude, there were that Yankee killing song he made, and everyone find out about that.
Oh yeah. Man, why the Yankees?
Why not all of us?
What about the Red Sox?
Yeah, what about the goddamn St. Louis Cardinals?
What about the Giants, man?
What about the St. Louis Cardinals again?
What about the State Louis?
What about the Saints?
What about this? Is there a Saints? I think there is a Saints.
What about the San Francisco 49ers?
I'd rather laugh with the Sinners than cry with the Saints, let me tell you.
Hey, what about the Utah Jazz?
Did you look it up? You looked it up?
My hands are right here. My hands are right here.
You're reading. You were reading the list.
That last one was a
You pulled it
basketball
up ahead
team.
of time. You knew we were going to go in this direction.
That last one was a fucking basketball team. We were talking about baseball.
I think that was the Jazz are a basketball team, aren't they? Shit.
Yeah, dumbass.
The Raptors.
Come on, dumbass.
The Utah Raptors.
You know why it's called Gatorade?
It's because of the fucking Florida Gators. I'm pretty sure Elliott Morgan was the person who revealed that to me.
No fucking way.
I'm not entirely sure.
I have a segment.
I think he was on the Sugar Pine podcast. You have a segment?
I have a segment. It's our first segment.
Oh my God. Tell me about this.
I want to talk about what our host did before SourceFed.
Oh, okay. Well, I know what Steve was up to.
Well, I'm not going to be fucking telling you, am I?
I know. I'm just saying. I'm just excited. I wanted to let you know.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to. I don't know. I was just kind of saying shit.
We're going to go in order of everyone's maximum top spot on the maximum top Hot 100.
I was gonna say. Yeah. I think there's only one person that we know who's first, and I do not know.
So let's start with that.
Lee
We're going to
Newton
start
is
with
up
Lee Newton, who plays 57 on the 2012 Maxim Hot 100.
Lean Uten.
Lean Uten in our left corner was a relatively unknown comedian. Not much is known about her past works aside from an IMDb credit for a short film called Happy Trails, which is now lost media.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, I can't find it anywhere. Someone might have it.
Dude, we could. Do you think we could email Lee Newton?
I don't know if she'd be the one to have it. She was just in it. Wait, there's a director.
That's true. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, shit. One time I was in a firefighting PSA, and they said they were going to give me a copy. They never did. So
they probably did her the same way.
Yeah.
Our next host, who did not place on Maxim's Hot 100 in 2012 or any other year.
But God knows he was almost there.
He tried his goddamn best. Joseph Bereta.
Joe Bereta, here he goes.
Let's get a Joe Bereta 1 over here.
The terrifying.
And so
The deadly.
He was an established comedian. God, what? Did you have something to fucking say?
He had a kid.
He did have a kid. Yeah, you're right.
Already.
I forgot to put that.
And what is he? He's in his late 20s, his mid 20s. What are we talking?
Hey, okay, this was supposed to come later, but I'm gonna ask you now. Out of the original SourceFed hosts, like the original 6, so the 3 and then Steve, Meg, and Trisha, which one do you think is the oldest?
The oldest?
Yeah.
I think it's Steve.
Which one do you think is the youngest?
The youngest?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking the original 6?
Yep.
Elliott?
You're right on both, and I'm mad about it.
Oh my God! Well, you have to remember, I just watched like hours and hours of these people.
Dude, Steve Zaragoza gives me such 20-year-old vibes. Like even now.
Really? No. Steve has always been. I guess maybe this is partially informed with my knowledge of what Steve was up to. You know, like he had like real jobs before this. So I think that might be me sort of mapping that onto it. And also he makes references to things that are older than everybody else references, which becomes more apparent in later SourceFed, much more apparent in later SourceFed.
You're totally right. I didn't think about that. Because like Steve Zaragoza is 1 year younger than my mother.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's
really I'm really into people being older right now. I think
really
it's not that he's like old, you know.
Yeah, but you know he's wizened.
Like, I think it's badass. I was talking to my cousin Chloe, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm almost 30." I'm like, "That's kind of badass to be real. Like,
dude,
that's sick.
You know so
That's
much.
fun.
You've seen so much shit."
Yeah, like it only makes you cooler and wiser to be older.
We had one of our friends over last night. Shout out to my buddy Trevor, who will not be listening to this. Trevor's in his early 30s.
Trevor Noah.
Yeah, him, that guy. You know, they just kicked him out of his Daily Show job too. And Trevor, we played Rock Band at my house last night. He killed everyone at the drums in Rock Band. And I will say that he is a real, actual drummer in real life. So you know he gets a little bit of help.
I've
there.
always heard that it's harder to do the real if you know the real instrument, it's harder to do the Rock Band version of the instrument.
I'm sure it's because, you know, like the muscle memory. Yeah, I think it's more if you know how to play that song, you know, or have an idea.
Yeah, and so you can use that knowledge to transfer over, but not the mechanical knowledge.
I'm like, it is cool as fuck that you're like old enough to this point where you have mastered not only the skill of playing the drums, but also playing the drums on Rock Band. I haven't had that much time yet.
You know, we're about to get to Rock Band SourceFed concerts.
Was that a thing?
That was a thing. I don't know if it'll be on our next one or our next one.
Okay.
But I know it's pretty early. I'm pretty sure Meg Turney is still in those.
Because my first SourceFed like watching was not for another year from now, up to the point where we've watched. So there's a whole like year and a half of content that I never consumed. This is all first time for me.
All of this was first time for you. Because see, I mean, I remember some of the ones that were from before I started watching were still in circulation algorithm-wise, I guess, because I have very distinct memories of watching the one about NASA, where Lee Newton does this whole like Southern Luddite bit about NASA, and one about the Mark of the Beast, or at least what I thought would be the Mark of the Beast. I actually haven't. Yeah, it's 60. It's the 60th episode,
Okay.
and I have here microchip under the skin for astronauts. I remember thinking this would be the Mark of the Beast. It was crazy for me to be watching this kind of content at the time. Vastly changed my personality. How did SourceFed change you? Because I want to mention, we were talking about the politics of SourceFed, right? And how both sidesy that shit was and will get. But like for me, because I was raised in such a radical conservative setting, SourceFed was far left to me as a child.
I can fully imagine that. I think it's almost a gateway. Like, even in spite of all this shit we've said about how they're not really saying anything at all. It is kind of a gateway into saying something, especially something like that you're not used to.
That's the thing, right? Like, it's Stan Lee has this great quote about Spider-Man, where he's talking about, college students are starting to read my books, even though they're aimed at a much younger audience, and they say, well, this is such clever satire. And he says, I found out that if you just plainly state the way things are, it comes across as broad satire. And I think that even though SourceFed, its hands are tied by corporate interests, even neutral statement of the goings-on in the world become leftist discourse.
When you hear someone else say it, it always sounds bad.
Yeah. When you hear somebody say out loud that it's like, well, maybe they shouldn't be allowed to get married, you're like, oh, you're crazy.
Yeah. And I do think that maybe it did help me a bit as a young person kind of breed the ability to make my own decisions about things. But like,
it definitely did for me.
As a 23-year-old man, I don't need to be told that I can make my own decisions about these things. Like,
but aren't so many grown men like that? Like, I think when it comes to American intake of media and the way we are required to do it in this sort of numbing, constant barrage, here's what you think about this, here's what you need to pay attention to, and it's always something that doesn't matter, and it's always somebody getting fucked over and you're supposed to be glad about it. Like, I think that the refreshing thing about SourceFed was, on both sides of the aisle, if we want to call it that, was that they really do directly ask you questions. They demand you to engage. And it's simply because of money.
Oh,
but,
for sure. And so they have content for commentary.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, first of all, we get engagement. Second of all, we get a whole other video about it, which gets more engagement, right? But a side effect of this is that it does demand individual thought. It demands you to answer questions for yourself. And they say, well, what do you think, right? And that is something in mass American media that is missing, because they're telling you what to think. They're not asking you what you think.
And when they're not telling you what to think, they just tell you how it is. There are still a few, but you don't hear it from like a person like you did with SourceFed. Like when you hear NPR, you're like, oh, you're the guy who's been like legally saying the news for fucking Congress for the past 40 years. Like that's your job.
Yeah.
But like when I hear, I won't even say a name. When I hear a SourceFed host say some shit like, the gay marriage issue is very complicated. I'm like, oh, That's not right. Now I understand that there are people out there who think that the gay marriage issue is complicated, and I'm realizing that I can take a stand on the fact that it's fucking not.
Yeah, because you're like, what the fuck is complicated about that? You know, what are you talking about?
Joe Bereta was an established comedian from the comedy duo Barretts and Bereta, who were briefly under contract.
Oh, I
with
forgot
NBC.
about Barretts and Bereta.
Dude, yeah, that's where they started.
Brothers or lovers?
They wrote, directed, filmed, paid for, and starred in a TV pilot called This Is Cul-de-sac that was never picked up. It is also lost media.
Oh, man. I bet Joe has that.
Oh, I'm sure. I would love to.
I bet Joe has that. But that's the question, like, are the original SourceFed people too big for us to reach out to? I know we've made successful contact with one of them.
Yes, they are. All of them
We'll get to that later. All of them are, to be real. But, like, I don't know. So much of SourceFed is about making them approachable, right? So much of SourceFed is like they sort of put a veneer over the fact that they are a vessel for this information. Mm-hmm. It's framed as their thing. It's framed as what they think. And we know that's not true because we're using critical thinking skills. But when you're 12 or a normal American, you don't know that.
And I also have some comments about, like, a little further down, some things that I compiled about where they seem disingenuous outside of them establishing opinions that I don't think that they mean. Like I said earlier, I don't think Lee Newton thought that North Carolina Amendment 1 was a hot button issue with reasons to support it.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt that.
But it goes a lot fucking deeper than that, and maybe that'll be my next segment after this, because I have a little bit on that as well. I've got a few segments planned today.
I'm fucking up your segments over here.
No, you're doing great. Every time
I'm like a kid smashing a caterpillar. I'm fucking up your segments. Get it?
I would have gone with something that has like more like a millipede.
I was thinking about a centipede or a millipede, but I couldn't remember which one was which. So for some reason, I didn't say.
That's okay. You're doing your best. It was still a good joke.
Thank you.
Elliott Morgan was a small-time child actor starring in a Nickelodeon Because We Can commercial, which is not lost media.
Yeah, no, we have that, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Before, I'll put it on screen. Before moving on to receive a degree in zoology.
What the fuck?
He has a bachelor's or a master's in zoology. He never became a zoologist.
Are you telling me Elliott Morgan is smart?
Yeah.
That goes against this note here. I have one of the first notes, actually 127. Elliott says, "I'm a tard."
No fucking way. Hold on. I have one like that too. They did a one-on-one with Kevin Pereira, who worked for G4 at the time. When asked, where's that fucking note? I have to read it exactly as I wrote it.
Is that one Elliott too? I know Joe does one or more.
That one's Joe.
Okay.
Joe asked him if he could give any animal wings, which would it be? G4's Kevin Pereira answers with
bears.
See, that's fucked up because that's funny as hell. See, that's fucked up because that's funny,
dude. That's where that's where we're at in the culture. You know, this is where we were in 2012. You could put that on YouTube, and that was cool. And like
unquestioned.
Do not fucking go. Listen. Do not fucking go and try to cancel Kevin Pereira or Elliott
There's
Morgan.
no reason. Kevin Pereira, you really think it's been 12 years and Kevin Pereira hasn't thought some more shit through? Like, that's crazy. Of course he's got a different perspective now. It's like I said about, I think Lee and Joe come out in support of PlayStation All-Stars. And we all know that PlayStation All-Stars is fucking terrible. But, like, this is one, maybe not even their opinion. I mean, God knows what money and interests lie there. Probably they got paid off by Parappa. But what more than likely is the case is that they're saying shit that was okay. Like we say shit that is okay and won't be okay. Yeah. And we do. We all think we don't. And we do. This is unavoidable.
Something we said, the fact that you called him Parappa, like something's going to come out in 10 years that makes Parappa sound really offensive. And then 15 years after that,
maybe
he's not going to be called Parappa anymore. Not that anyone's going to be talking about Parappa the rapper in 30 years, but you know.
Hey, you don't see that's going to age poorly too. You know they're going to make a movie, and Kevin James is going to play him.
Kevin James, dude.
And then he's going to get in trouble too and I'm not like anti-cancel culture or whatever. I'm just trying to make sure that we all understand as we engage with this old ass media that these people are no longer doing this. This is not what they're up to. This is not what they're saying. And a lot of the times they're not even really allowed to say what they fucking think.
Yeah.
Because I remember very specifically, there's an old commentary where somebody asks, and it's one of those things where people ask something and it's clear, like maybe about them, you know? But they ask the cast, and I know it was Lee and Joe and somebody else. I think it was Elliott.
Okay.
And they say, like, would you date a trans person?
Uh-huh.
And Joe, I don't remember anybody else's answer, but Joe, as a child, his answer stuck out to me because, like I said, I was raised in a hyper conservative environment, right? Trans people were like not even real to me yet, and also like scary.
They're not real until you've met one.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's so true. My dad's got a story. He met this girl from Strawberry, Arkansas when he first moved somewhere else.
Okay.
And she said, "I never met a black person before, but I love y'all on TV."
No fucking way.
And she was excited. She was excited because then they were real, you know? And she was like, "Wow, you guys look like that and everything." Like that. Like it's one of those things. They really aren't real to you yet.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
You ever seen those pictures of like when like fucking Asian missionaries will go to like Africa and all of the African kids are just pulling their eyes back in the racist
They're
way?
like, "Dude, this is funny as fuck."
Yeah.
They're like, "You look different than me. This is deeply fascinating."
Like, I'm familiar with the idea that there are people who look different than me, but I'm not face to face with them yet.
And if we're being real, like we've all seen a person of our own race with like like Asian looking eyes, quote unquote, right? But it's not like a thing you like take note of socially unless they are of a different caste, a different race, a different class, some other kind of thing.
Different ass.
So trans people, they weren't different butt cheeks. Trans people weren't real to me yet, right? And Joe really came through on this one. He was like, and like I said, this is a long time ago, but Joe's like, "I couldn't, but that's because I'm like, that's my thing. Like, I'm too fucked up to do that. I should get past that." And he addresses the commenter and he's like, "And if you would, you are a better person than me. Like, you're definitely right about that. And I've got my own fucked up internal mental blocks that keep me from doing that."
I do get a lot. Okay, so actually I have a note about Joe's role in this. And there's an interview that I'll try to track down.
Do we like Joe?
I love Joe. I think Joe's great. There's an interview.
I just mean like as a host.
I think he's maybe not one of the best hosts.
Like, I think Joe's cool. I like him a lot. He's really funny. He's really cool. Everything he sets out to do on purpose, I like.
He's also someone's dad. And
he is somebody's dad. And he was from the beginning. And that's really interesting.
He is the dad of SourceFed, I think. But there's this interview with Phillip DeFranco and Joe from like 2 years ago where they discuss this like nebulous idea of things that Joe actively did not agree with about the way they ran things at SourceFed, and like things he was saying about SourceFed and Phil while he was still employed there that he wasn't happy about.
At that time.
And obviously there's no way of knowing what those things are. But when it does come down to like the way that Joe kind of presents himself, and there's a specific video in mind from the June 10th, 2012 bloopers video. And there's not a precedent of an actual white wall that this is correlating to.
Interesting.
But he's just standing in front of the white wall next to Lee, and he goes, "I don't understand how you cover both sides of a murder. It's a murder."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised they posted that.
I know. But it was with no
context. That makes them look so fucked up.
And
but still.
Another thing is the shirt he's wearing in that bloopers video does not appear in any other video from that week.
Oh, so you think that video didn't get put out at all?
Yeah, so I think that might have been why they were able to put it out, is because what he's pushing back on doesn't exist.
Yeah, there was no way to match it up.
Mm-hmm. So it just,
somebody somewhere down the line canceled that video. It didn't get put out, but it did get shot.
and he did something wacky, and it's just, man screaming funny. So they put it in the bloopers video for a little bit of...
Joe is so man screaming funny.
Dude, except when you ever hear him, like, fucking try to ad-lib a song?
I'm sure I did, but...
Dude's got no improbability whatsoever. I love the man.
That's interesting.
When he's put on the spot, he's maybe the cringest of them. But it's because he's someone's dad, He's got a fucking, 4-year-old at home at this time.
Yeah. He's got daddy duties to worry about.
I got daddy duties in my diaper right now. Elliott Morgan never became a zoologist.
Wow.
But he did audition for SourceFed and get back in front of the camera 15 years after his Nickelodeon Because We Can commercial.
Now that is fascinating. Because Elliott is maybe the most puzzling of the hosts to me. And he ends up being one of the longest running. He ends up really being one of the most important hosts. And even in post SourceFed projects, these people, they had a serious bond. And so they stay connected. And Elliott ends up, I don't want to say in a surprising way. I just remember Elliott was not one that I really glommed onto when I was younger. It's really cool to see him do that.
Elliott's the one that he showed up with he was not very established. Really the only one that was Joe,
Yeah, Joe is the most established by far because his YouTube channel was successful.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said,
I think he even shows up in a Red Link video or something. Yeah. He guest hosts GMM a long time ago.
I wouldn't be surprised. He was known. Berets and Bereta were
maybe.
Big early YouTube.
Yeah.
And Lee wasn't, but she's kind of built in quirky pretty girl, and so you're left with Elliott Morgan, who's kind of awkward and weird, and very, very young, a full 5 years younger than the other two hosts. He's 21 or something when he starts this.
I knew he was really young, but I thought maybe Lee was closer to his age than the rest of them as well. But
I'll double check that, but he's no older than 24 when this all starts, and Lee and Elliott.
There's an episode I remember being taken aback when he said there's an episode where he mentions exactly how old he is. I don't remember what it is. I might have it in my notes.
He ended up being the one that had a triumphant return to SourceFed, and he's married to fucking Grace Helbig now. He planted his roots in the YouTube community.
He's YouTube old money.
Yeah, and that that is the thing that I'm legitimately proud of with a lot of the SourceFed creators is the things they went on to do after.
They're all better than SourceFed. I still check on Delman.
You check on Delman?
Yeah.
All of those big motherfuckers, there were 3 just big tall motherfuckers that worked in the back of SourceFed. I love them all. They're all hot, and I love them all.
DJ's hot? Tell me about that.
Nah, DJ's not hot. But fucking Owen?
Owen.
Owen?
Okay, so I know Owen predominantly from Dynamic Banter. And thusly, I have rarely seen Owen. I don't know what happened to Owen. I know he choked one time. That's the funniest shit in the whole world. You haven't seen that episode of Dynamic Banter where Owen fucking chokes?
No, I have not.
And he almost dies. Dies.
That's real crazy shit.
And Steve was in VR. He didn't know.
What the fuck? No, I have to find it. Speaking of Steve Zaragoza
Steve was an Ewok from the planet Ewok. Endor. Moon.
Forest moon. There you go.
Yeah. The sanctuary moon of Endor.
Can I do this?
Yeah. Yes, please. I'm sorry. I love you so much.
I love you. Steve Zaragoza was a small-time actor and sound designer at Sony, appearing in a Buck Cherry music video, an episode of 1,000 Ways to Die, and even once on a Channel 4 News, lamenting the loss of the Back to the Future ride at Universal Studios. He had a sound department credit on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I did not know that. I knew he worked for Sony.
Mm-hmm. He worked on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. He made the sound of the meatballs slapping up against the ground when they fell from the sky.
That's fantastic.
That was him clapping his nuts on the floor on the linoleum.
He's clapping his fat nuts on the floor. He had to shave them just for that.
Dude, he was shaving his fat nuts so he can slap him on the linoleum floor at Sony. That's why he wasn't there anymore. That's why he went to SourceFed, because he got in a lot of trouble.
I have special knowledge of Steve's past as well. He also did the Paul Blart Mall Cop website.
He what?
He did the Paul Blart Mall Cop tie-in movie website.
He made it?
I don't know if he made it single. I'm sure he didn't make it single-handedly, but I know he worked on the noises for it, and he helped. He said he had a very good time fucking with the noises on that.
Where'd you hear this from? You got his sources?
Either SourceFed podcast or Dynamic Banter. It's something esoteric.
Don't pull out the esoteric in the middle of our first video about SourceFed.
I have a cousin named Esoteric. I looked so much. Okay, what else do you know about Steve?
That's it. That's all I got.
That's it. Okay, wonderful. Do you have any? I mean, we get Meg a little bit.
Trisha Hershberger was an aspiring theater actress who auditioned for SourceFed after being unable to find steady jobs on stage.
Very cool. Very cool. Great moves from Trisha.
She did great for herself. Now she's like a famous nerd woman and doing her shit. Finally. Go ahead.
Is she?
Yes.
All right, cool. I was just wondering.
You just needed to know if she was.
Was just wondering.
Meg Turney was
actually have a note. No, tell me about Meg Turney.
Meg Turney was a. Oh my God! Check out my haircut.
What happened? What is that?
Don't worry about it.
What the fuck is that?
Meg Turney was a convention cosplayer who had just begun her YouTube channel when she started to guest host White Walls.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, she like
Do
her
we know
whole
how
thing.
she ended up in this crowd?
She auditioned like everyone else. Like, well, okay, so I don't know what I actually looked for a call out, like a casting call for SourceFed. I could not find one.
That would be really cool to find.
I could only imagine it was like, we need someone who is into the nerd shit.
You got to be moderately hot at least.
You got to be moderately hot, and someone's got to know about something you did at least one time. That's all.
I guess that's only not true for Elliott and Lee, right?
I mean, they did the commercial and that Lost Media movie respectively, so they got a little something in their repertoire.
And then later on, we get Whitney Moore from Birdemic.
Is it Birdemic? I couldn't remember. Okay.
Birdemic, Shock and Terror, man.
We get Candice Carrizales from fucking Rhett and Link that one time or a couple times.
Rhett and Link, and also there was like a spin-off of Good Mythical Morning that she was a part of.
That's Rhett and Link, dipshit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was their same company, but it was like a whole different thing. Rhett and Link were not involved at all. It was her and somebody else. They were hosting by themselves.
They were paying for it.
They were paying for it.
They were paying for it.
So I have a 202. The worst part about Trisha's occasional appearances, which were taunting me, just because, Trisha's a sign that we're late in the game. Trisha's a sign that we're nearing completion, and of course I'm stuck in this sort of. It feels like an endless hallway when you're in these white walls. They're literally in a void. They're talking to you at the highest volume they can muster for as long as possible.
Fucking loud, and the audio is awful.
Yeah, the audio's really bad. There is some crazy good bits about the editing every once in a while. There's one where, like, I think Lee mentions the editors, and then it zooms out, and they're on the editing screen, and the editor is editing the video.
That's really
And
good.
he's like, huh. Yeah, it's great stuff. It's great stuff. Like, the fidelity, they were aiming really high, and a lot of the times they hit it. But there are things that are missing. There are things that could be better. Far be it from us to make such claims, though, because this is a podcast.
This is this podcast. That's awful.
Yeah, this is this podcast. Don't look at anything else we've ever done. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's funny. I have an intended audience. Oh my god. You go ahead. Your fault. Your turn. Go ahead.
The worst thing about Trisha's occasional appearances has become that she can absolutely chill. She's deeply and truly cool, to be real. This is also the first episode where it's apparent they are actually further apart in the room than they appear to be.
Dude, it's crazy that they got them stitched together, because you'll see one of them stick their arm out and it goes away.
It goes away, yeah. And this was the first time I noticed it. I doubt it's the first time it's ever actually apparent, but apparent to me. This was episode 202. And I don't remember what it is, but I think Trisha moves in a weird way, or whoever she's hosting with moves in a weird way, and they just, suddenly disappear.
Yeah. They went through great lengths to make it look cool, like to make them standing in front of a white screen look cool. I think even by the time SourceFed ended, it never looked good.
No. It was never a good idea.
The stage for SourceFed Nerd looked amazing because it was really
fantastic.
There.
Yeah.
And it wasn't some
cutouts. They had the fucking arcade machine that Steve built.
Yeah. It's not some like blown out white background that they're badly composited onto, and also will get cut off if they reach too far towards the center of the screen. But
I feel like the white wall had to be some sort of corporate demand. Like I don't understand what that stuck around for.
It's striking and unique. I mean, it's part of their identity very early on.
That's true. I mean, they called them the white walls from the very beginning, which is something I was also surprised by. That always seemed to me like something they, just ended up calling them.
Yeah.
But they were always the white walls.
It seems like a fan term almost.
Right? Yeah. 204, being sneaky makes Joe pee violently.
Do you have any cringe notes? Do you have any notes of a cringe compilation of things that they've said in the past?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, the entire Harley one-on-one is fucked up.
Really?
It's crazy. I think Elliott does it. Did you watch it?
So I think it's another important thing to note here. You and I started this project 14 months ago. Mm-hmm. Last January. Today is March 23rd, 2024. We started in January 2023. This video probably won't go up until fucking June. Knowing me.
Knowing me, knowing you.
So the first half of these videos I haven't seen in one whole year at least. I think somewhere around the Harley one-on-one would have been in last year. So if I don't have a note about it, I don't know anything.
I do have one notable thing about the Harley thing is that they, how people are like, The Simpsons predicted the future.
Uh-huh.
SourceFed predicts a lot of things that happen.
Okay.
Mostly because it's the news.
Yeah, it's kind of their job to understand established patterns in human nature. And
exactly. But Harley, somebody asked a question. I think it's Elliott asked, like, if all of Epic Mealtime and all of SourceFed were to fight, who would win? And they talk about this, and they're like, we should do that. We should do like an official clash of the creators. They don't exactly say that. But the fact that it's SourceFed predicts the creator clash, which one of the SourceFedders goes on to win. That always seemed fake to me. Like, that always seemed like that couldn't have possibly happened.
I do feel like there's a lot of like trends that they are kind of on the cutting edge of. Like,
they are, yeah.
It's their job to do so. Like, YouTube is up to this point paying for this program. Like, they're funding it, they're paying for people's fucking salaries and the camera equipment and the office space. Maybe not the office space, I don't know. It was owned by it's Phillip's also office space.
Yeah, that is Phil's, isn't it?
But nonetheless,
and it ends up being shared. Is it shared from the beginning?
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's behind the scenes where they just walk into the phillip studio. But nonetheless, YouTube has a vested interest in the success of this.
Yeah. And
so, like, there's not going to be anyone who's more attuned with what YouTube is doing and will be moving towards in the future than YouTube itself. So, like, I think that there's a lot of, even if YouTube's involvement wasn't very great, which I've never imagined it to be.
They seem relatively hands-off.
Yeah.
All things considered, right?
But nonetheless, they're still kind of in the middle of that world.
Yeah, and what a thing like YouTube wants is also never that different on the day-to-day, right? Like, you look at the current pushing of YouTube Shorts, and I cannot help but think about how SourceFed would flourish in such a setting.
Dude, 60-second white walls.
Yeah,
and like
they were always supposed to be 60 seconds.
They should have been 60 seconds or less. SourceFed would make it. Like, I think someone could bring the name back, and as long as they had enough of the original creatives, I think it would be perfect. Like,
I think you're right, but I think that I don't really fully understand the circumstances around the death of SourceFed, but I think the fact that it would make it today also means that it won't ever come back. Like, I think that the direction it ended up going and the hindrances it ended up having would prevent a return. Because I don't think you could get a lot of people on board for such a thing. And even later projects that sort of mimic things that SourceFed was doing don't really, I don't want to say they don't hit in the same way. They do hit in the same way, and that's the problem.
I think that there are like Smosh, for example. I don't know how much modern Smosh you've consumed.
A little bit.
I went into a little bit of a phase after Anthony came back for like the nostalgia factor, but it is still something I feel pretty disconnected from, so I didn't stick around. But like, it's almost this. It's SourceFed without the white walls.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's like 30 of them, first off, and they do all kinds of little series.
Yeah,
like
they have like a whole crew now.
Yeah, like SourceFed, used to do Two Truths and a Lie, and these people do like, they have a series about, I'm going to show you a tweet that one of you made 10 years ago, and you're going to have to guess which one made it. Like it's literally like the same formula of a bunch of people having their own little independent series. And you kind of have the thing that you like, because like by the end of SourceFed, like you might have been there for table talk or commentary, or like the SourceFed tries stuff. They did like a Try Guys type thing towards the end.
Yeah. Which were in the white wall room, which was so weird.
The Two Truths and a Lie were as well. They would do that on a white background.
The drunk riddles one.
Oh my fucking God. I love SourceFed so much.
It's such a good, and like SourceFed never did anything good it did on purpose. I don't think. Another media conglomerate funded by big money and supposedly small and sort of fledgling was BuzzFeed. Mm-hmm. Right? BuzzFeed around the same time, not quite yet, but soon to be, would be flourishing. And would be pivoting to video, like everybody was pivoting to video. And did you hear about what happened with pivoting to video?
With who? With BuzzFeed?
Just with everybody, like with Facebook and Google. The reason pivoting to video happened.
I don't think so.
It was some kind of clerical error that made it seem as though people were more willing to engage with video than they were with text and articles, which just wasn't true.
Mm-hmm. At the time.
It just never was. Yeah, now it's true, right? And Facebook knew this. They caught wind of this, and all the companies started to pivot to video, and they just decided not to say anything about it. And so the entire landscape of online communication and information is changed so far forever. Definitely not forever.
Because of some fucking intern or something.
Yeah, it's like, let's just leave it. Yeah. Whatever. Let's keep it that way, right? What SourceFed set out to do and what SourceFed managed to do successfully are completely different.
Yeah, I mean, because for one, like even from the jump, they set out to do curb cash, and
right? Yeah.
They didn't fucking like curb cash.
Nobody liked it.
It was complicated.
Yeah, it was like hard to shoot, and you had to like go and do shit.
Another thing was like, so the way it worked is they would have fucking Kevin, whatever his last name is, run around and ask people trivia questions. And then they would make sure to get a shot of, like, it would be multiple choice. I'd make sure to get a shot of one person saying all 4 of the answers. And then it would pause on all 4 of their faces, and you'd click their face. And it would take you to a different unlisted video to tell you if you got that question right or not. And if you did, there was like a link in the description you could click on to win $1, you know, kind of thing.
Wow.
But, like, annotations didn't work on mobile YouTube in 2012.
Yeah, it had to be desktop YouTube back then.
So you had to be on desktop YouTube, and then, like, it was also just, you could just fucking right click all 4 of them and put them in a new tab. There's no test.
Get $1 every time, I guess.
There's no proctoring. I don't remember what, like, there's some idea that you win something. I don't even fucking remember.
Mm-hmm. And there was also no way to, like, make sure people played that game right. Because they're using fucking something that's not supposed to be for.
But there was absolutely no engagement. And
damn.
So they just canceled it, you know? Like, they always kind of followed. They would just try things. And, like, they were all new ideas, you know? Like, a YouTube on-the-street game show in 2012 was relatively novel, I think. But that doesn't make them all have staying power. Mm-hmm. So, like, they would just do
that which
things.
is novel is frequently, I don't want to say controversial, but that which is novel is either going to do really well or fucking die in the dirt immediately.
Yeah, it's often a flash in the pan. So they would just keep doing that until something worked. Like, the New Movie Thing show stuck around for fucking less than 10 episodes over the span of 3 months. Like, I don't know if people just didn't like it. You know, those videos are still there, and I don't see anyone have any particular problem with them. But they just disappeared, and they moved on to do new things. There's so many. The only thing that stuck around out of the original 3 things they pitched SourceFed on was the white walls. Because they eventually one-on-one goes away eventually as well.
I always felt like, or I guess in hindsight, I felt like the return of Elliott to the main SourceFed channel was a little bit of the return to the form factor of the one-on-ones, but that's not really the case. I think it's just me associating Elliott with both installments.
Yeah, I mean, like, any case where it's like just kind of him and he gets to write it, you know, feels,
there will be a certain cadence to it.
Yeah. Hey, do you have any notes about cringe things you saw in SourceFed videos?
Oh my god. Okay. Oh my god. Okay, so 213. 213 is great.
Okay.
It's the Orbis. Do you know about the Orbis?
Fuck, I don't know about the Orbis.
Come on, you know about the Orbis,
no,
man.
I don't think I remember.
You've got an Orbis. No, let me tell you.
Uh-huh.
You viewer, you've got an Orbis in your house right now.
Is it like some bone in my body?
No, that's something different. You're thinking of the Gorbis.
Oh, okay.
No, the Orbis is a wild ass, fake ass PS5 like rumor thing.
Okay.
And this was early on, pretty early on. Yeah, 213. This really made me reframe all of how well researched these videos are. Because let me tell you, the Orbis is the fakest shit I've ever seen in my life. Dude, and it's like, this is what the PS4 is going to look like. And it's one of those weird 3D rendered, like looking like a prop from the background of Wall-E type shits. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And they are reporting on this like it is fact.
And like,
they're like,
do they do that thing where they're super fucking excited about it for like no good
reason?
Okay.
Dude, they were excited about fucking everything, man. Uh-huh. It was crazy. Any entertainment news, they're on board for it. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, they're excited about.
No one was excited. I remember being 12, finding out about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and I wasn't excited. And I was the target fucking demographic for that movie.
Yeah, that's who it's fucking for. Like, there are so many. There's Steve's E3 coverage. Of course, this is way. We're hopping around. What the fuck is that? What do you have?
Dude, will you keep fucking talking and stop talking about shit you see around?
I love talking about stuff that I see. Stuff that I talk about, see around, man. I can't fucking find it, but Steve's coverage of just about anything is that interestingly overly excited bit. And I think for some hosts it works a lot better than others. I've never felt like Joe Bereta was excited about anything in my life.
Maybe that's what we should talk about. Because I told you I have some notes about the actual interest and authenticity in the things that they said they were excited and into.
Yeah.
Because, like...
Which, as we all know, is, like, inherently hindered by what they are making in general.
Yeah. Because, like, Joe is, like, 30 years old at this point. I know he does not give a fuck about, like, these weird nerd shits that they're making him talk about.
Dude, I think so much about... One of the cringiest things about the whole bit, which I do... Some of me cringes about the word cringe a little bit, but... what they're wearing.
I have a bit about that.
Fucking Joe in the shirts and shit is not right at all. There's a great one where he's wearing the Sherlock Holmes is not a fraud shirt.
Yep.
And you're like, nigga, you haven't seen that show.
So that's I wanted to talk about that. I'm so glad you noticed this. There was assuredly a wardrobe because you want to talk about that specific Sherlock shirt. Elliott wears it too.
Yeah. I think Lee has a different version of it.
Okay. But Elliott and Joe both wear that shirt. There's a different Doctor Who shirt that they can both be seen wearing. It's like this, like, it's one of, it's like the 1920s cartoon Cuphead kind of style of, like, one of those fucking stone angel things. Or whatever.
Oh, the Weeping Angels.
Yeah, or some shit like that. It's some Doctor Who shit that I don't think either of them give a fuck about, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Like, we know, we know that Steve wasn't that excited for Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
We know that, we know that, like, Elliott was really disengaged with the superhero stuff at the time. He kind of always has been. There's an episode of The Valley Folk that I threw my guts up to one time where he's specifically talking about it, so I remember it. And I think it speaks a lot to how disingenuous what we're being shown is.
Yeah. I have a particular note, like so the exact wording is, I don't believe that any of the opinions being expressed by the host is legitimate. They all seem so enthusiastic about everything all the time. And it's hard for me to imagine them all being into the same stuff. Like that fucking shirts, you know? Like they don't look like either of them.
That's not your shirt.
Yeah, that's not yours. Phillip made you put that on. DeeVeeDee made you put that shit on.
Yeah, because 4 Human Peoples is fucking selling it. And that's just the nature of what they're doing. You know, I don't mean to make any sort of moralistic claim here.
Sure.
But it's so surprising to me that so many of because we see the SourceFed audience. We see them all the time. It's so surprising to me that either it wasn't being called out in mass or noticed in mass, or that people were just kind of going with it. But I can definitely say, as a 12-year-old child, I was just like, wow, I can't believe all these guys like Doctor Who. That's so cool.
Yeah. It I've done a lot of research into what the SourceFed, for lack of a better word, fandom was like during this
what
time.
do you call them?
The Source Federation.
Is that real? Did we hear that before?
I made that up myself.
Okay, because that's pretty good.
Thank you. It seems so blatantly artificial.
Yeah.
And yet, I've never seen anyone call it out. Like, granted, I didn't spend a lot of time in anti-SourceFed spaces. I spent a lot of time in pro-SourceFed spaces.
Were there prominent anti-SourceFed spaces?
I mean, I'm sure if you were, like, looking into, like, certain fucking YouTube threads on old forums and shit like that. But it's not something I can find as simple as I can go to r/SourceFed and sort by oldest first.
I kind of had a pet theory that they were deleting comments back in the day. Because
really? I wouldn't be surprised.
With knowledge of how vitriolic comment sections on YouTube are and used to be, and the nature of them, I mean, I guess they're probably reordered now because of the different comment sorting programs or whatever.
Yeah, there was one thing I noticed is that I can't find any of the comments from comic commentaries. Because
Interesting.
Even if they would have been top comments at the time, it's been 12 fucking years. The algorithm has changed. What people agree and disagree with has changed.
That makes sense. Like it really, that's one of the hindrances upon what we're doing, right? Is that like we have to, I mean, we were there. It's not that hard to, but we have to sort of take into account that all of this is still being affected by the current state of YouTube.
And a lot of this, like, is kind of we're a little unique in what we're doing. In that
Just a tad.
I don't think anyone else has watched a white wall intentionally that's as old as what we've been watching in years.
Definitely not. I feel like I'm excavating.
And it feels a lot like an excavation. So, like, even if there isn't, like, the community having its effect on these things, you know, directly influencing what is now at the top and what's at the bottom, the algorithm is, you know, and, like, there are now, like, just automated things that will put a comment where it's not visible if it calls you, like, the F slur or something like that, you know?
Yeah,
so, like, there's no fucking, like, even if it's been abandoned for 10 years plus now, I still feel like there's no way to get the authentic comment section experience without something like the Wayback Machine. But if you want to fucking do that for all 7,000 something SourceFed videos, you know, that sounds like hell.
I don't think that would be a doable undertaking. No.
And so all we can really do is infer based off of what we can see now and what survived. But they are all, with that being said, overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, and they're all, everybody we see, and I mean, obviously you're not going to put into a video of the new movie thing, so somebody being like, you know, I think you're kind of full of shit. But, like, it's, everyone's so on board. And a lot of them are, like, even doing the SourceFed bit a little bit, you know?
Do you remember, even outside of your age, like, were you particularly similar to this around this time? Like, were there things that you, like, pretended to like?
Oh, yes,
just
yes.
Because that was, like, not even to impress anybody in particular, but that's just because that's what everybody else liked.
Yeah, it was a character I wanted to be. It was somebody I was playing that wasn't me, really. And I think it's something that really affects us, especially people who are not as mature, you know, younger kids and just weirder motherfuckers. Just people who are more willing to feel the need to perform, right? I would pretend to have seen movies to myself. Like I would be playing this sort of SourceFedified character, and it's really weird to inhabit that space when all you're being told is that this is genuine. All you're being told that is this is real and this is how these people really are, and they'll even tell you as much on video because they're contractually obligated to. Because if they don't, they will not be paid and they will starve in the street. I want to emphasize that this isn't these people on an individual level's fault, or at least I don't think it is. But you see these people performing constantly, and you hear these people saying things they don't really mean, doing things they don't want to do, going places they don't want to go to, and you think, oh, this is how people are. This is what people do, and this is how people talk, and that's how you get those motherfuckers who are like mean to you as a joke when they've known you for 10 fucking minutes, you know? Like that's how you get people who talk in references to My Hero Academia.
God. I do think that it's more symptomatic of what the internet was like at the time, you know?
Yeah,
like,
because they're all playing the internet person from the early 2010s.
Yeah, there was one internet person from the early 2010s, and it was like a young, straight white person who liked everything that Wade Watts in Ready Player One likes.
Yeah, and I think when is that book from?
Like 2013.
Yeah. You can feel it, can't you? Like it's in there. And I mean, like, I used to be on the hater train for Ready Player One. Fuck that shit, man. I bet it's a good book. Ernest Cline seems like a weird motherfucker.
The second Ready Player One, Ready Player One is fine. The second one is the worst fucking thing I've ever read in my life.
Damn.
It's billionaire propaganda. It's crazy.
Whoa. Do you think it's because he got rich from the book or what?
Maybe so. Maybe Spielberg made his movies.
Yeah. It's like, wow, Spielberg, you know what? The system does work. Because look, I'm all right.
Dude, Wade Watts is just like me for real.
Yeah, man. Like, and the fact that, let's talk about Ready Player One more for a second, because I think it's very emblematic of the time that it came out. I think it's very emblematic of what is being said at the time, the popular ideas in the zeitgeist. Because all these people, they don't go outside. They don't do anything. They interact with people on that's not the internet in the book, I don't think, but it's the internet, you know?
Yeah, it's an equivalent.
Yeah. The outside is fucked beyond belief.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing good out there. There's nothing safe out there. And if you go in here and you interact with this machine that is owned by people and is pushing you to activities and to thoughts that are profitable to those people, you can be free. You can escape. Here you are in this wonderful oasis. All you have to do is play this role. You just got to be this fluffy-haired CGI man and fuck with Mechagodzilla or whatever.
Dude, you just have to fucking pretend Reagan's the president again and experience all the things that you would have experienced when Reagan was president, and you'll be happy. Dude, it's proto-Stranger Things.
It really is, yeah. And Stranger Things tugs on that same nerve. Stranger Things ended up doing that same thing that I think at first it definitely wasn't trying to do.
Well, I don't know, because it starts off, all into D&D and shit, but
that's true.
Stranger Things, the first season came out in 2016. Okay, this is 4 years after the launch of SourceFed.
PhillipD was the one who recommended me Stranger Things.
No way.
And I want to emphasize, these people occupied the space in my life that Friends would occupy, and the role that they played was designed to do that.
Yeah, and you'll listen to them when they tell you to watch this thing that just so happens to align with, the kind of trends and things that they were into and were at one point pushing to you for profitability.
Yeah.
But Stranger Things came out in 2016. If you think about how long it takes to write and shoot and film and edit.
Yeah. So what are we talking? 2014 to 15?
Yeah. The roots for that probably land at the beginning stages of pre-production before it's been pitched. We're probably 2012, 2013.
Yeah, shit.
There is this idea, these concepts were just the thing to cash in on. Mm-hmm. And even beyond what you profit from it, they're not just the thing to cash in on, but they're the thing that everybody's fucking into.
Yeah.
So I think that there might have even been some societal pressure, societally, on these hosts to wear the Sherlock shirts and be really excited for Assassin's Creed 3 because these were the nerdy geek things that you were popular and you were liked for enjoying and consuming.
Yeah. And with it comes this sense of community that I would say is ultimately false. Just speaking as someone who is a nerd, a geek,
Yes, I am a nerd.
Bookworm, I'm studious. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to, and those who lieth betwixt, I want you to look and see and know that he's leaning towards the microphone like he's going to say the rest of the Rhett and Link rap. But he isn't going to do it. He's not going to do it because ultimately, like the hosts themselves, his tongue is stilled by what he must do rather than what he wants to do.
You know what it is that I must do?
What?
Talk about our next segment.
Fuck.
Our next segment is host to be and hosts that once were.
Can we please get Bree Esrick on the podcast?
Dude,
I don't think we could do it. I don't think we could do it at all, but it'd be funny and cool.
You have, at this point in Bree Esrick's career, you have to... hold on, I gotta Google
Probably have to get in touch with somebody that works for Bree Esrick. I don't know what you have to do. She was in a short film where there was a horrible character named after me, and I'm pretty sure he was based on Max Landis, and it really fucks me up.
Okay, I had to look up her. I had to look up her pronouns to make sure I was referring to her correctly.
Badass. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about updating these people's pronouns in general, actually.
I think they all retain all of their pronouns that we knew them as, except for Whitney Moore, who is not Whitney Moore. Fuck, the wrong one. Ava Gordy it goes by they them.
Dude, love Ava. Ava Gordy, great late addition to SourceFed, I would say.
Dude, one of the best. The final four, like the four that ran it at the end of SourceFed.
Some of the best ones we ever got.
Fucking Suptic and Candace and Ava and fucking Mike Falzone are
Mikey's in that last wave, isn't he?
Dude, they are the four funniest people that ever fucking worked for SourceFed. Like, they are so talented and smart. I love that group.
They're
like the group that said goodbye to SourceFed. That's my SourceFed.
Yeah, like from a lot of, I remember there was this perspective that it's like, oh, it's come so far and it's fallen so far. But man, SourceFed was at the heights.
Dude.
Final SourceFed was the best SourceFed we got, if we're being real.
I want to talk about hosts. I want to talk about the hosts of SourceFed. So we're all well aware of the original three hosts of SourceFed, who are not that one, but Elliott and Lee and Joseph. Not Steve yet. Except, fun fact, Steve Zaragoza's ass was in the fucking teaser. No one has explained this to me. I've tried to get answers. Steve's in the teaser. He's in the teaser from before they ever uploaded a video, and we don't see him again for 3 months.
Well, I mean, he was kind of in with Phil, right?
I don't know. I've tried to find this out.
Interesting.
No information.
If only we had some kind of way we could have reached out to Steve Zaragoza and asked him any question that wasn't about fucking Assassin's Creed. I think maybe we would have an answer to that.
There's one more thing that I want to mention about the last thing we were talking about, their inauthenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve Zaragoza and future, but also former, future for me and you, but former for the rest of the world that's in 2024, host of SourceFed, Mike Falzone, have a podcast together called Dynamic Banter, which is better than anything you and I have ever made. I love them both very much.
Oh yeah, they do a lot of stuff on there. They honk horns, they ring bells, they make good.
Making good.
It's really dynamic.
They have a segment on their podcast called History Road, where you can email them at dynamicbanter@gmail.com and tell them a story from your life, and they'll read it on the podcast. It's not for asking questions.
It's not.
I sent in a History Road letting them know two things. One, that one time I sent in a History Road and Steve said he wanted to call my phone, but I didn't leave my phone number, and it made me so upset I didn't listen to Dynamic Banter for like 6 months because I fumbled the bag so hard.
You didn't Look, man, you did great. You had no way of knowing that I would even get through.
Dude.
You know how many of those Mortimer reads and then immediately eats?
The pig?
Yeah. That was my impression of a pig.
That pig noise was fucked all the way up. Okay.
No, let me try again.
You sound like a Minecraft ghast.
I can do this. It's just something you got to do with your throat. There we go. Kind of.
Okay. This one cut out. It only sends you.
No way.
Yes, it did. I swear to God, I didn't hear it.
Fuck, man.
But I let them know that, and I let them know we were making this video so that I would have an excuse to ask if Steve was actually as excited about Assassin's Creed 3 as he seemed to be.
Yeah.
In his first appearance, or if they just made him act like that.
Is that his first appearance is when he's talking about Assassin's Creed?
I believe.
Wow.
I could be wrong. This was all like mostly kind of a ploy. I kind of tricked the boys that I feel terrible about. Just so I could find out, a little bit more about the whole, is this forced upon you kind of deal.
I got a very vague question.
Yeah, I got a very vague answer.
The vaguity is interesting to me.
Which, like, he was like, I kind of liked Assassin's Creed. Like, I was probably a little excited, but like, he's shitting and jumping in that
screaming
fucking video.
and yelling. Yeah, he's like, okay. Also, the first thing we ever hear from Steve is he's beating it to Maxim magazine. Is the thing he says in the teaser.
No way.
Yeah.
And then they got Lee in there.
Yeah.
This says a lot about our SourceFed society.
It's like the it's like the teaser is a retcon. I swear to God, there's so much shit in the teaser that comes back later. Not only Steve, but also Maxim. Some shit Elliott says ends up being relevant in some way, shape, or form. I think that might be the one where he refers to SourceFed as internet daytime television.
It kind of is internet daytime television, isn't it?
I like that as a term. I think that's the closest to an immediately understandable sort of blurb for what exactly SourceFed was.
Dude, one-on-one feels so much like your local fucking, like, public access.
Yeah. Especially once they got a real famous person in there.
Mm-hmm. Like, oh yeah, we've got this person from Community.
Yeah.
And
like
then,
when it was Jenna Marbles, it kind of feels like an upper echelon that we've reached, you know? But when all of a sudden it's like a candle and the sun. You know?
It's left the YouTube space.
Yeah. It's
and
like
gone beyond.
We're in a different stratosphere now, and we're really actually on a smaller scale than you kind of, at least for me, I kind of lose track of, because, you know, you're deep in the dick, you're lost in the sauce, you know.
You're shitting in the butt.
You're shitting in the butt and you're coming into your ears. You ever get...
No, I don't. Whatever you're going to ask me, the answer is no. But anyways, take that as you will about whether they meant anything they said or not.
There's a bit where Steve is talking, he's talking about some video game, he's interviewing some, no, it's his E3 coverage, and he goes like, he has the microphone up to the guy, and he's like, did you see me do the microphone with my, never mind.
I saw you hold up the microphone to me with the hand that you're not holding a microphone with.
Yeah, I did the fake microphone. In my head, the fake microphone is a completely different item than a real microphone. But, like, this means microphone to me. The clasped
and no
hand,
one can see you but me.
Yeah, I know, nigga. Just give me a second. I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah. He's interviewing somebody about E3, and the guy goes, "It's awesome." And then it cuts to Steve immediately yelling, "That's awesome!" And it's the funniest shit in the world.
Dude, Steve has such good timing.
He does. Steve has got such raw, untamed charisma that you don't even notice that he's not funny for the first, like, 30 minutes that you're exposed to him.
That's fucked up. You mean that? You believe that?
No, that was mean, and that wasn't true. I do think, though, you can see a lot more of Steve's influences in his behaviors, which is really cool and interesting to me. You can also see how brave Steve immediately was. I think I have a note about this down here. Yeah, Steve, 464. Steve wearing an Adventure Time shirt in this time period is legitimately brave. Also, he wore it yesterday.
What does that mean?
Like in the previous the previous day's videos, he's wearing it as well.
Those were normally filmed same day. Like,
yeah.
So I wonder if that's because, like, Steve would have had a different wardrobe.
Right? But maybe I have a theory that Steve was the only one that did not require a wardrobe.
It's because, like, what Steve wears now is very similar to what he wore. And, like, what he's wearing in, like, fucking, like, behind the scenes shit, you know, when he's not in, like, an Ewok outfit. Like, he's still in, like, a flannel and an Adventure Time shirt and a fedora.
There's one episode where he's wearing this crazy ass, like, Dr. Zaius from fucking Planet of the Apes 1. It's an all black shirt, and he's got this shiny red vinyl Dr. Zaius' face, and it's enormous. It's like his whole torso. And I know for a fucking fact they did not give that to him in wardrobe. Nobody else has worn that. Nobody else could wear that. Nobody could rock that shit like Zaragoza.
He can rock some crazy shit.
He can really make it work. he'll make you think it looks cool because it looks cool on him, and you wear it and you look like the biggest doofus in the entire universe.
Dude, Steve is the only person that can look the way Steve looked in 2012 and someone walk up and think he's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Steve is so fucking cool. What's up with that?
dude,
He's
I
so
wish
good
I was
at
him.
being so fucking cool. I wished I was Steve Zaragoza like every day when I was
I
a kid.
still wish I'm Steve Zaragoza. Like, I'll watch Dynamic Banter and he'll say the funniest shit I've ever heard in my life. And he does it every single time.
Sometimes without noticing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, off
Sometimes
the cuff.
with little fanfare.
Yeah. He was doing some shit about Darth Vader working at Arby's a couple weeks ago. I don't know what the
Yes.
fuck it was.
Dude. I fucking wish I were that man.
He's really I really do think this, and I think this about a lot of the hosts. They were so talented in this way that it's a miracle that this thing ever worked, because everything but their talent is working against them. Everything about this project.
And they don't, like, shine over each other either, you know?
No,
Like,
they
'cause
don't.
they're
They
all
work
talented.
together in a really good way.
It's like, I would think that there had to have been... In fact, I think I might have read somewhere that there were, like, chemistry tests between them. Like, they, like, had put all three of the original ones in the same room and let them talk to each other and made sure that they bantered dynamically.
They had to folk validly.
I want to talk about hosts. I want to talk about hosts that were not there from the beginning and hosts that were there from the beginning but weren't hosts yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about Trisha first. We see Trisha as early as March 2012, the same day that we see Steve for the first time. Steve would be a full-time host by May.
Yeah.
Trisha wouldn't be until August.
Mm-hmm. It takes a lot longer for Trisha. Do we know why?
No, I mean, like, she,
Just curious.
as far as we know, fully auditioned for SourceFed just like everybody else.
So she wasn't going for part-time. She just ended up part-time for a while.
Yeah, I guess so. She would just show up when no one else could be there. And so, like, we see her a couple of times, but it's not until even after this first 6 months of viewing that she's seen it, that she is a full-time host.
Yeah, and I kept second-guessing that because of the sheer frequency with which she starts to appear towards the last few videos that we're watching.
But we see Steve for the first time that same day, also as a stand-in for Joe. Joe's out that day, so Phil called, I guess, two of the people who didn't quite make it in the original auditions.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah, just to see how it went down. But he would, within 2 months, he'd be a full-time host. We see Meg for the first time on June 7th, 2012. And by August 23rd, she's a permanent member. It was also less than 2 months for her. But she seems like she wasn't in that Trisha and Steve batch. Because Trisha we see as early as March, and Steve we see in the original teaser. But Meg we don't see until 6 months into the channel almost. And it doesn't take long for her to get permanently added to the cast. So I think Meg was just popular. Like, they wanted a sixth one. And there was, there's kind of a pattern of the women that were hired by SourceFed, especially in the beginning.
They're like from a nerd woman farm.
Dude, like genetically engineered hot nerd women. It's crazy.
I would believe that. Like in a Dune style fucked up Talaxu axolotl tank sort of way. Like the idea that Trisha Hershberger is from a lab is very possible to me.
And like they all look so different. Like there's a blonde one, and there's a brown-haired one, and there's a red-headed one. Like it's like,
oh my god, they
dude,
were checking boxes. They had to be checking boxes.
Will first appears within the first month of the channel. He's credited solely as intern.
Where?
He's in the video where they like right towards the beginning.
I think you told me about this before.
They get one of those pits where you like stand on two pedestals and you each get like a fucking inflatable bat, and you got to beat the shit out of each other until one of you falls off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Will was fought in that as an intern.
Wow.
Which, I mean, he was an intern for PhillipD before SourceFed. Like he was a For Human People's fucking like warehouse worker.
In his own words, yeah, a For Human People's sweatshop worker.
Sweatshop worker, I like that. And then finally, among hosts that we know about, not necessarily a host, but someone we see throughout the entirety of SourceFed. Darren Von Gertner was an editor and cameraman from the beginning and can be seen as early as the April 29th, 2012 behind-the-scenes video.
Darvin von Vardner is what it says.
No, that's his real name.
Yeah, that's it. Before he was DeeVeeDee.
So, I want to ask you something. I've been referring, or at least insinuating throughout this video, that Steve was the fourth host of SourceFed.
Oh my God.
What do you know about Keith Jordan?
I don't know anything about Keith fucking Jordan, man.
For one single white wall, discussing rumors of a Ghostbusters 3. There was a trial in the same vein as what they did with Steve and Trisha. Throw them in for a day, see what they think.
Yeah.
Very, very early in the channel. Like, first month. Named Keith Jordan. Keith was universally reviled.
What the fuck?
And never returned.
Why?
I've got a sample of comments.
Oh no.
From the Keith video. If you would humor me,
I would
let me
love.
read them to you.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I have a section in my notes called Keith Hate. Albert Blank says, fuck Keith. Stephen Edis says, what a tool. Wispy Terror says, Keith looks like a perv.
Damn.
I like him.
Whoa. Okay. Well, that one turned around.
Yeah. Angel Ruiz, capitalizing the first letter of every word, says, get Keith the fuck out of there.
God. I have no recollection of Keith. I must have seen this video.
You would have. It opens with, hi, I'm Keith Jordan, and today you're going to decide whether you hate me or not.
Whoa.
And boy, did they decide. Boy, did the people speak. A&M and about 500 other people say, Keith sure does blink a lot. And let me fucking tell you, this guy blinks for real.
What do you mean he blinks for real?
This guy's eyes are closed more than they're open in this goddamn video.
This is an impossibility.
Hey guys, welcome back to 20 Minutes or Less. My name is Keith Jordan.
And I'm Lee Newton.
And you're going to decide whether or not you hate me in 3, 2, 1. Today, my first day as a part-time, and I am one of my favorite all-time Ghostbusters. According to a recent interview, is Ghostbusters act happen, but also to track down to be a part of here point to that night. Android quote as I don't think exciting guys. This day month. I mean, no, I at the no. Ghostbusters will bill me. Faves all in less subscribing. Guys, got all this race from a tomorrow for 20. My name's Jordan.
I'm Lee. Isn't Keith nice?
Jalia2 says, I feel like Keith just doesn't fit well in the crew. Way to go, Keith.
Interesting. Interesting take.
Acco1. Keith's meh.
Damn. That's fucked up.
In a similar vein, Joshua says, he's blonde, looks weird.
Why would they do him like that?
Josh Babin. What the fuck is this douche doing on my screen? I love SourceFed, but will unsubscribe if this knob polisher stays on camera. Just make another Lee if you need one more person.
Make another Lee? Fuck, man. That was our hint. They've been giving us hints the whole time.
And finally, I saved the best for last. DeeVeeDee1 in a cultural time capsule. Wants us to know, I'd rather see Justin Bieber cast as him. Maybe the Jonas Brothers.
Whoa.
P.S. America. The N-word.
Wow.
For one day in SourceFed's history, all that they were known for was the horrible, misguided launch of their fourth host, Keith Jordan.
Do we know anything else about Keith Jordan?
No! This guy fucking disappeared. He has like a YouTube channel where you can see his acting reel, and it's like mostly like it's really funny. He makes light of it, and I'm very happy for him. But it's like the reviews are in, and it's like mean comments from his SourceFed appearance specifically.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good move.
I don't think he ever did anything else. I don't think he did anything before, and I don't think he did anything after.
Holy shit.
Most of the SourceFed members retain some sense of relevance somewhere.
Yeah.
But you, my friend, who has spent the last 14 months consuming SourceFed material, didn't know anything about Keith Jordan.
Didn't even know.
He's but a flash in the pan. I don't know why the video's still up.
If they were going to scrub anything, wouldn't it be that video?
And I mean, you know, that was his test to see if he'd stick around. But he failed. And he would have been told. He would have been sat down and said, hey, Keith, they don't fucking like you.
Yeah. This is not working, Keith. I'm sorry. They fucking despise every fiber of your being. They hate you.
And we're going to leave this video in which you blink 480 million times up for anyone to see.
Fuck.
With thousands of comments.
All dedicated to their hatred of you.
All dedicated to he's blah and looks weird.
Dude. I would rather see the Jonas Brothers. I would rather that.
P.S. America,
what did he mean?
N-word.
What did he mean, man? What?
I think what DeeVeeDee is trying to say is that Justin Bieber's a better choice for a SourceFed host than Keith Jordan. And Justin Bieber sucks.
Yeah, Justin Bieber sucks. Remember that photo of him getting shot a million times?
Dude. Not until you said something to me about it. You know that time you caught him saying the N-word a bunch?
Yeah.
Dude, what the fuck?
Man.
If I'm Justin Bieber, you're not catching me saying the N-word and hitting bongs on fucking camera, dude.
If I had the power Justin Bieber had and they caught me doing anything I didn't want them to do, they would be dead. Let me tell you.
I'd get my people after him. Put him down like a dog.
Oh, shit. I think my headphones died. Over here. All right, we're golden. Sorry about that. Fuck. They fucking. All right. There are a number of things about this I don't understand. About the Keith.
Keith?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
First of all, I don't understand why I don't fucking remember Keith. I remember a vague Ghostbusters. You know, I mean, a lot of the white walls sort of bleed together for me at this state. Right, I'm in right now, because I'm in the midst of watching every single one. Yeah, yeah. Which is something that I volunteered to do for no real reason, but the instance of Keith is fascinating to me because something I had set out to do when I started watching all the white walls, every white wall, is to take notes about bizarre irregularities, is to take notes about things that happen, maybe things that happen only once. Do you think it's possible that Keith is so forgettable and just horrendous and evil and horrible that is the reason I don't have Keith? Because I have things so minute as in 48, phillip says, let's go into it.
He says,
let's go into it.
Like what you say before you excavate a
cave.
Instead
of let's get into it. Which is what he said every time for decades now. Or over a decade now.
I sure wouldn't characterize Keith as evil. But I would say that he is the worst host they've ever had.
What is so bad about Keith? I don't remember a damn thing. I mean, I feel like if I were to witness someone like this, I would at least remember how bad they were.
He's just dry and blinks a lot, like to a distracting degree.
Well, he probably drinks a lot. He probably blinks a lot because he's dry. Get it?
Good bit.
Get it?
I like that. Yeah, you kind of stuttered in the execution. I'm sorry for that. But anyways,
Does anyone ever
I
mention him
wouldn't
again?
Yeah, it was a bit on the subreddit for a long time where like if something went wrong, you would blame it on Keith. Like he is very, very forgettable. He doesn't really seem like he has much of a personality. He's not even really distinct in the way that he looks, you know? Like there's not a lot of memorable concepts regarding Keith. Except for the fact that he blinks a lot. Like he's not as bad as what many of those comments make him.
Yeah, how they are treating him, of course. That makes sense.
That's a little undeserved, I think.
A little.
But just a tad, okay?
That last guy had
He
a Kendrick
blinks too
had
fucking much.
the end of a Kendrick album at the end of it.
What?
American nigga. That sounds like something.
No, the word is what that message or that comment says is the N word. Like those 3 words.
Wow. America, the N word.
Yes.
Well, this paints me a whole new picture because I assumed this was white guy hard R normal YouTube comment situation.
P.S. America,
The N word.
the N word.
Wow. I think Elliott left that comment.
If you do want some insight into how Elliott left comments around this time, you can check out the March 2012 Reddit AMA.
No
that
way.
they did. I read the whole thing. There's not much interesting information put there, but it is an interesting look into their lives and also how many people immediately started sexualizing and being weird about Lee Newton.
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised there. I don't think I looked at Lee Newton's first video comment-wise, but I know I looked at a lot of them, and they were just so horny about Lee Newton in there. Just so freaking crazily horned up in a wild way.
The company leans into
They do, in a major way, in a surprising and genuinely irresponsible way that I would love to ask Lee Newton about. I want to know what that position was like to hold.
Hey, Lee, if you're listening,
Lee Newton, I know you listen to this podcast. Please.
did you want to be
Right?
number 57 on the Maxim Top Hot 100 in 2012?
Because at first they're doing this bit.
How much control did you have over this?
That's another good question. Yeah. Like,
They made you do I won't say they made you. Did they make
Yeah.
you do that photo shoot that you had to do?
is that the
Promotion.
photo shoot where she has the bikini shirt on?
Perhaps.
Or am I mixing photo shoots?
I don't know. I feel bad looking
Because
at
as a
it.
as an aspiring actress, I would imagine she would probably already be a part of a photo shoot or two before this. But also, like, I don't know, like
these are on a white wall. These are
on a white.
obviously
Okay, no, I'm thinking
SourceFed.
about a different one. No, this one she's on a beach and she's wearing a shirt with a bikini printed on top of it, and it's a good bit.
That's really
it's a good bit. Yeah, it's funny.
There were a lot of like the way that, and I don't think this was. I think this is another symptom of the internet and YouTube at large, because like I talked about the interview with G-Force Kevin Pereira earlier, who at the time had a show that was co-hosted by 2 women.
Whoa.
And when they talk about those 2 women in that interview, he's like, yeah, I would fuck them both.
Oh my god.
They were just doing that shit, man. This was not that fucking long ago.
At the fucking time. What the fuck?
Yeah. Like it's a weird little ecosystem.
It was the Wild West, let me tell you. So there is it's Meg Turney's, I think it's her first video, 439. We get Steve reporting on the E3 floor, and we get mock sexism ? I put. And I don't remember, I think it's Joe and Meg in this video. And there's some sort of flagrant remark about how women don't do this or do that or something. It's some stupid, trite,
broad generalization.
Yeah, broad generalization. But we see that a lot in these videos. We see that a lot on the internet at large in this time period. But SourceFed's engagement with it specifically is interesting to me. Because a lot of the times there's this sort of pastiche of irony, this sort of like semi-ironic air to the sexist remarks they make. But at the same time, this is the company that's doing the Maxim thing. This is the company that's like leaning super hard into Lee, and they will with Trisha here in a minute.
I mean, they have Trisha Hershberger do a pinup photo shoot that they put on posters
And sell.
and sold for $15.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is like, I don't know how good of an authority I have this on, but like I know that like Trisha's like a cosplayer or whatever, taking like cool sexy pictures of herself is not foreign to her. But like this is a SourceFed pinup shoot.
Yeah, she is an aspiring theater actress.
Yeah.
And here she is in a 1960s swimsuit holding a stack of magic cards.
What?
Did she want this?
Yeah.
Like, this is like, I'm not comfortable speaking on whether
We
this
were
is a
already
bad
talking,
thing or
right,
not.
about how these people's hands are being forced. They are playing these characters.
Mm-hmm.
They are trapped, not trapped necessarily. I mean, they can leave, but how much of what they are engaging with is what they don't want to be engaging with? There's really not a
and
way.
that's obviously not something we can speak on.
Yeah, there's really not a way for us to know.
There's a vibe.
There's a weird vibe. I can tell you that for sure, motherfucker. There's a weird vibe in here. Yeah, you ever heard of Dog Diane?
No.
Dog Diane is, I believe, Bree's dog, and there was a whole bit. She had a Twitter account that she ran for the dog. Anyway, it's very millennial shit here.
So much of it was.
This is interesting too because we're seeing millennials when they're our age.
Yeah, isn't that fucking crazy? Like,
Yeah.
we're seeing like Joe Bereta is a Gen Xer. Joe Bereta, like I said, Steve is my mother's age.
Yeah.
You know, so like, I'm seeing Steve when he's like 28,
Somewhere around
and
there.
I'm 5 years from that. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
This
we're
is
getting
not
to that
far
point
off.
in the internet where you get to see people who are to us significantly older than us. Like I said, Steve's not fucking like hunched over a million years old or whatever,
Yeah,
but he is.
he's
like,
not to the old man bit point yet.
Yeah, he is almost twice my age.
Yeah.
And so it's weird being able to see him so much closer to where I was or where I am now, and him still or like just kind of get an idea of what he's like in that way. But like one thing I wanted to say is like, in regards to them, me not knowing whether this was like exploitative or not, the higher ups at SourceFed are these people who don't really exist. Like, by the end, they were Discovery.
Yeah.
And
Somewhere far
like,
off.
you know, even phillip might not have had much of a say in like the fucking posters and shit, because like
I doubt it.
people were buying, like people wanted those, you know. It was more of a give the people what they want than, you know, you're gonna have to do this. I'm not necessarily comfortable speaking whether or not, you know, this was voluntary, but
Yeah,
there is a
because that's
vibe.
something.
At
I
the
mean, we
same time,
can't speak to the agency of other people. Yeah, that we don't have any way of knowing.
you might think someone would have said something by now if it was that bad.
That's
Like,
that's
what
that's
is
a
there
good
to
point.
lose? Like,
Yeah.
what would Meg have to lose if she was like,
Hey, that was fucking weird.
yeah,
everybody.
I did not like being stuffed in the slave Leia outfit before I was even being paid full time by SourceFed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
I can't remember. There was some weird bit they did with Lee and Trisha at some point that I bore witness to, and I don't remember. But like, the shit is too numerous to count.
yeah.
The shit is constant.
Meg specifically, you know, she was a cosplayer. She was used to being seen by so many people in so little clothes. You know, like that's not new for her. That's not involuntary.
Yeah.
But like,
That's something she engages with.
yeah, it's different than when someone that's paying you is telling you to do it, and that's
Yeah.
why it feels like a problem for me. Like, I'm not trying to like stir up anything, but like that's when I'm like, these people have a certain amount of power,
Yeah.
and it's one thing to like make them say that you may agree with this homophobic bill that's being placed. It's a totally other thing to like sexualize them or you don't have a job.
Right. And when it comes to the whole, like you said, the give the people what they want idea, right? YouTube and SourceFed specifically, their business model has always been about audience engagement, has always been about how you are also part of the SourceFed team and all this shit, you know? So when you hold that as a reason over someone's head, your options become very limited very quickly. And I feel like it would be so weird if we're doing a retrospective about the ins and outs of SourceFed and the host relationship to the audience and the host relationship to the company itself and the company itself's relationship to the audience, if we didn't address that in some way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a majority. Like, there are positive upvotes on all of the comments from their AMA that are like, Lee, will you marry me? That was...
Well, that was from Delman. We don't know. We don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's
from
true.
Delman.
You're right.
He had a lot of different accounts.
You know, just things like that. People bought the posters, you know?
They did.
People didn't complain. Like, this was something that the fans of SourceFed wanted.
And I'm not trying to judge anybody for wanting the posters. I mean, shit, I was 12 years. I remember wanting the poster.
Hell yeah.
But you can't ask your mom for the poster with Trisha Hershberger on it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But I was a kid, you know. I didn't understand.
I was
really
a little boy who thought these were real people who weren't even doing a bid or anything. I thought this was all real, you know. And so, of course, they're on board with it. Well, yeah, great. Everything checks out.
I have a cringe I want to read.
I have a cringe, too. I just saw it.
Do you want to go first?
So, 468. The title is Doctor Makes Epic Cancer Fail.
No fucking way.
It is. He made an epic cancer fail because what happened was he told this guy he had cancer and he sent him to this fucking island and he paid for all this shit. He practically bankrupted himself, you know, because he had cancer. And he had to go to this place, and it turned out he didn't have cancer. The doctor was just fully wrong.
Dude.
And then he was mad. I think he sued them because he was like, motherfucker, you sent me over here. I'm paying everything I got to get to this damn... There's an island involved somehow. I don't know how. But he had to send him to an island. Cancer Island. And...
Like the
Elliott
movie.
Yeah. Scooby-Doo on Cancer Island's my favorite one. But Elliott's take is that he shouldn't be mad because he doesn't have cancer, which I think is crazy.
You shouldn't be mad that you have no money left in your whole life because you don't have cancer, so
You
that's
don't have
okay.
cancer. Think about that.
You were just lied to. You had to face your morality and mortality, and you don't even got anything going on. You look your kids in the face.
You
I've
look your
got
kids in your face. You
cancer.
tell your mom. You call your mom up and let her know her
Shit.
son is gonna die, and then you have to go to an island where Elliott Morgan is gonna judge you harshly, and then it turns out it's not true.
But you're broke now.
Yeah. You don't have
say,
shit
"Kids,
anymore.
Good
And the doctor's
news,
just like,
I
"Whoops,
don't
sorry."
have cancer. Bad news, the house is being foreclosed.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna die
Like-
for a different reason.
Dude, I'd kill that guy.
I think we need to bring back killing.
I think we need to bring back epic cancer fails.
Dude, bring back an epic cancer fail just once in a while, man. Yeah, here it is, 442. This is from earlier, but Elliott refers to this brand of internet video as daytime internet programming. I think that's very fitting, and I think to put such a bizarre burden on the hosts, because the hosts for the audience were everything, like we said, and direct interaction, literally in commentary, with these people who are supposedly part of the SourceFed team are just as important as everybody else making these decisions. It's crazy, and it had to be a very tough. Ladder to climb.
And like, they got to pick the comments too. You know, like they were the ones scrolling down. So like, if you're Lee, you might be parsing like 40 comments about something you don't want to be commented on before you're like, get to someone who actually answered the fucking question they asked in the first place.
And then like, I don't remember if they were shitty about Steve in any capacity.
No, Steve was universally loved.
Yeah?
Steve from the fucking get-go was loved. Oh, yeah. That's why they put him in so much shit so quick. They put Keith out. We never saw Keith again.
Yeah, that's true.
But we put Steve in one video, and they put him in all of them from there on out. Like, 2 months, and he's on board full-time. He's quit his job at Sony Picture Studios And
he
now
was
he's
working on
at
Paul Blart's
SourceFed.
website, and now he's got to be at
Dude.
SourceFed working the Ewok costume, kicking people in the balls for money.
This period of SourceFed that we've been watching is like right around and leading up to the Avengers.
This is true. I remember this.
There's a big hype of, assorted fucking trailers and speculation and stuff like that. Well, after it came out, they commented on the box office numbers, which were gargantuan for the time. And Lee gives her own little description of what the Avengers is. In case you didn't know, the Avengers is a little bitty comic book movie about the Marvel badass superheroes directed by the beautiful Joss Whedon.
Oh, man.
Which is the hardest string of words I had to endure as we watched. Steve said geekgasm once.
Oh,
And it
that's
wasn't
fucked
as
up.
bad as that.
I had one that was also deeply fucked up. It's later on in here, but they're talking about the original trilogy for some reason. I don't remember why. The original Star Wars trilogy they're talking about.
Okay.
And they fucking goddamn. Here it is. 440. Joe and Lee refer to the original Star Wars trilogy as Star Wars the Original 3. Multiple times they call them this, like it's normal. They keep going, Star Wars the Original 3, Star Wars the Original 3. Oh yeah, it's the top 10 science fiction movies of all time. That's what it is. And they cheat, and they say the best one is Star Wars the Original 3.
I remember this video. I remember where I was when I watched this video.
Ooh.
Like, it's a weird, because there's some objectively bad choices in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
really bad.
Fucking like Fire in the Sky or something is in there. Like, just some awful shit.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Sunshine had come out at this time. Sunshine doesn't get a mention at all. Fifth Element gets an honorable mention, which is crazy.
I bet they saw something that calls the Star Wars, the original trilogy, the Star Wars OT, which I see a lot, and thought that stood for Original 3.
I bet you're right. Oh, and they also call them cult classics. And they say George Lucas molested them. They say George Lucas molested them.
Mm-mm.
They do.
No.
They say Star Wars the Original 3, the cult classics, before they were molested by George Lucas. They really do. They say that. It's the funniest shit in the world.
That's a funny joke. I'm sorry that's a funny joke, but it's a really funny joke.
Well, look,
I
mean,
would've
I'm not saying
worded
it's
it
not
differently.
funny. America the N-word. I would have worded it differently. Yeah, I would have worded a lot of shit differently.
But as far as what like 2012 lingo was like, I don't know if there was a better word at the time.
I think they have one where they're talking about the RoboCop reboot.
We weren't bungling shit back then, you know.
There was no bungling. There
was no bungling. It was straight molestation.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. 216 insane shit is said in this bloop. It's a blooper one. It's a forerunner for nerd hyperbole. I don't know if this is nerd hyperbole is remarkable in these videos. And an aspect of the early internet that is certainly not exclusive to SourceFed that I would like to briefly explore. They refer to making a bad version of, I think it's the RoboCop movie that they had announced, the RoboCop remake, as raping it with your rape dick.
No fucking way.
They do. Joe says this, I think.
And raping it with your rape dick.
It's really, really nuts, man. It's really... And then it's funny because, like, it's a little bit unfortunate to watch, but the shortly after this, 265 is CISPA is involved. Do you know about CISPA?
Yes, I remember, but I don't remember what it stands for.
Yeah, I don't remember what it stands for either. But it's basically it's an aspect of the further corporatization of the internet, right?
Okay.
And I said, forgot this project would entail watching the death of the internet as it was and could have been, as it becomes privatized in a major way.
Yeah, it was. And I think that's a big draw of like this early YouTube time is like, this was like right when hands started entering pockets.
Yeah.
You know, like this is
And SourceFed is one of the bigger instances of that happening early on in a successful way, I would say.
Literally paid for by YouTube themselves. This is, I believe, pre-Google YouTube. Like this is YouTube money YouTube.
I think so.
And so, like, this is when you begin to see, like, that's a good way to word it in the death of what it could have been.
Yeah.
Because, like, this is the beginning of, like, no more net neutrality and shit like that.
Right? Yeah. Like,
you know,
they work, like, we're seeing the digital Cowboys get replaced by, like, trains and shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And we're watching it, like, completely terraform the way the internet even works. To the point now, it's not unrecognizable. You can see how it goes, and a lot of the algorithms are very similar, if not the same, as they were then. But
and many things loop back.
Yeah. Things become recursive in this interesting way. But, like, the things that did change about the internet, it was definitely like there are some things that were way worse. Like you could make people do weird photo shoots, and you could say raping it with your rape dick, but you couldn't. You did have to both sides of murder.
That was the trade-off.
Yeah.
And, like, there was no short form content at the time, really. Not like true short form like we have.
Not
now,
really,
like
yeah.
Under 30 seconds type stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
that like instantaneous shit. We don't really get that yet.
You had to grip people for like multiple minutes. You had to keep their attention for minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only way you could make money.
Structure to an individual video. Whereas in the modern internet, videos are usually little pieces of an overall structure.
I have some questions. I've written down some questions.
I also have a question. Can I ask you mine first?
Yeah.
Actually, no, you go first. I only have one question, so.
Well, you go for it, because like mine are like, I have 2, 3.
Okay, so yeah, here's another one.
They're all like long conversations.
I got you. So look.
Yeah.
168. This video is called Argument Tips for Your GF/BF.
I remember this one.
Can you guess?
This would have been in my last year. So I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember watching the video.
Mm-hmm. Can you guess what the opening gag is?
If I recall correctly, it's an argument between Lee and Elliott that they resolve in...
It's Lee and Joe.
It's Lee and Joe? Okay. That they resolve in some way through one of the tips they're trying to provide.
You're close. That is the bit overall throughout the video. So,
okay.
Joe is delivering the lines like he is upset throughout the whole thing. It's a good bit. The first thing Lee says was a popular meme at this time. I want to know if you can guess it, because your chances are higher than you think. I'll even give you the first letter if you want.
The first letter of what?
The first letter of what Lee says in response to Joe's initial anger in this video.
Did she say Irma Gerd?
That's close, but that's not it. It is, you mad, bro?
No fucking way. Dude.
Isn't that great?
I have to hear it for myself.
It's surreal to see these people who are really funny and really charismatic say memes that are not funny.
Dude,
like,
the fucking eat spicy goodness like a boss. Like, it's the same fucking energy.
It is. It's that same vibe, because it's like, that's an actor. Like, that person, they're delivering a line there, but that's not what that is. That's not a line. That's a meme. And it hinders the whole thing. It's really brilliant.
Fucked up, dude.
It's a fascinating time capsule.
It's one of my favorite parts of this. Like, I don't get like enjoyment out of it because it's cring. But like, I do like to get an idea. Like it's very almost nostalgic for me, you know, to like I was talking like this, I bet I said "you mad, bro" within a 72-hour period of when Lee Newton said "you mad, bro."
I bet I would. I know there's this bit where, like, it's not anybody's fault. We all think memes are funny when they're around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't mean to. I love them so much. I love them all so much.
Let's say again. I love these people with my whole
love them,
heart.
especially Joe and Steve and Lee. Elliott, I do kind of hate him, but that's not a big deal. No, Elliott's
Maybe he should have
fine.
stuck with zoology.
Yeah, maybe he should have been a zebra or something else. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, come on, man. Go to the fucking.
Go to the zoo. Go to the damn zoo, man. Make a difference at the zoo. But like, there's this bit where Joe is doing the troll face, kinda. Okay. And I don't know if you remember being 12 years old and all the kids would be trying to make the troll face, and nobody can do it because it's a drawing. It's a drawing. It's 2-dimensional.
It's a drawing of a man with like a triangle head and a jaw like a python.
He looks like Phineas's actual father, like his biological father. And like, you just can't. You can't do it. And it's in a bloopers or something. Like, Joe knew it wasn't funny enough to get into something for real, you know? He gets it. But this was also a little bit before everybody had universally recognized that memes aren't actually funny.
I remember, like, when during this time, the definition of meme, like, that was like culturally accepted by every single human being was what rage comics were.
Yeah.
Old,
There
like,
was a specific format that was a meme. Anything else was a.
Those were memes.
What were they called when they weren't memes? When they were
Macros?
just a picture? Yes, an image macro.
Like, that was all you had to laugh at that time. If you weren't quoting Step Brothers, you were laughing at rage comics
or fucking like Monty Python.
Like shit from 50 fucking years ago.
Yeah, shit that is old as fuck for no reason, just because it's funny.
Your dad made the joke and it stuck with you.
Right?
Today there are, like, I've probably seen 4 different things today for the first time in my life that I would reference and joke about, and someone would get, you know what I mean? Like, there's such variety now. It's not just "you mad, bro," and "your father smells of elderberries."
Your mother was a hamster. Like, it's not. Jokes from movies aren't funny without the movie. You can't do that. You can't do that. And
maybe if you get like a real good scenario where you're like in the situation that they are in the movie,
an applicable quote or something can really hit. They can really hit. Sometimes when they're not even funny, like anytime there's a storm coming, I'll go, "A storm's coming, Annie," because there's this old ass woman in Episode 1, Star Wars, where she goes, "A storm's coming, Annie," and for some reason that got fucking imprinted in my brain.
dude.
And it's really just funny to me. But John at my work recognized it, and he laughed his fucking ass off because somebody mentioned a storm, and I was just under my breath talking about fucking Anakin Skywalker, you know? And he's like, "That's fucking dumb." Yeah, what? Huh? Well, I was fucking Anakin Skywalker. I had a friend who said they wanted to peg him till he cried. And I think that's really interesting.
Hey, were you a PhillyD fan?
Before SourceFed?
Yeah.
No. I get into SourceFed from I got into PhillyD from SourceFed. For sure.
That's where I was as well. But I didn't fucking like the guy, dude. I didn't like his Angry Birds pillows.
The Angry Birds iPad.
So fucking funny, dude.
Is the funniest shit. It's genius. I think they knew what they were doing. Those 3 motherfuckers are smart enough to be like, "Get the Angry Birds iPad out here."
They saw that at Walmart. Like, they went to go get like some deli food or something for lunch. They're like, "Holy fuck, will that fit our iPad at work?
Can we get that shit there?"
Fuck, that's so funny. But I've always gotten atrocious vibes from Phillip DeFranco. Like, if I'm being honest, and no hate to PhillyD, because
I'm sure he seems like a fine person, maybe.
Yeah, but like, you know, he is directly responsible for one of the most important things in my whole life, especially in my formative years, like for my comedy and
a big chunk of my personality comes from this stuff.
Yeah. Let me say that before I say I am absolutely fucking flabbergasted that nothing horrible has come out about that man. It is a goddamn miracle. Okay, he has had to have just played it as safe as possible for someone who looks and acts the way he does.
Well, hasn't he been like married with a kid like the whole time?
Maybe so. I don't know. I just get vibes from that, man.
Oh no, not the vibes, man.
I'm getting vibes.
I'm getting some serious vibes here. Talking like fucking Wolverine.
What was your first SourceFed video?
I think technically my first SourceFed video was a SourceFed nerd video.
Really?
Yeah, it was a table talk with Rhett and Link.
That's a really, really good way to get into SourceFed.
Yeah, I don't think they even mentioned. I don't think Rhett and Link even mentioned that they were on it, but it was recommended to me.
Just with their names in the title. That's all it took.
Exactly, yeah. And it was shortly after Bereta had showed up to replace Link, I think, on a GMM episode. And I was like, okay, well, fuck. I'll see Rhett and Link getting interviewed. I'll hang out. I'll do this shit. I'll watch this. And then my first white wall was, I've already watched it and forgot about it, but it's one of the one with boobs in the thumbnail. It's one of them. And I think it was Lee and Trisha. I think they're talking about some calendar or something. I don't remember what the fuck it is, but that was the deal.
That seems like enough to get you in when you're a 12-year-old boy.
I was 12. I was sitting on my top bunk. I remember, so nobody could see me, and and that's the one I watched. And then I felt guilt. I remember feeling guilty and not watching it anymore because it kept being like boobs 4 times in a day. You know. Like that's half of their early videos, so I should be no hate to them. Game the algorithm as much as you can, man. I'd be putting red in the thumbnail if I was you too. You should probably have the full wash and set. You should be fired if they ain't cut your shit. Fuck it though, bro. It's your life.
Mine comes much later. So this one's actually kind of a guess. I went back through my Google history because I've had the same Gmail account since I was 11 years old.
That's so badass. I've had the same Outlook account since then.
That fucking rules. And I just looked for the first time SourceFed appeared in my YouTube searches.
That's
the
clever.
first time because I couldn't find I've cleared my history since then. I'm sure 14-year-old me watched some horrible fucking embarrassing
Had to
porn
bury that
in
evidence.
Yeah, and I just cleared all my history of all time. Like fucking 4 years of like my lore went away because I didn't want anyone to know that I was watching like softcore
Human cake.
lesbian sex or something.
Oh yeah.
Human cake. I was able to look through my Google search history, like the things that I've actually looked up, not the pages I've been to, but the things I've searched for on YouTube and Google. And the first time I typed in SourceFed was mid-June of 2013, like June 20th or something like that, which sounds relatively right from when I started. And I looked in that area, and the one that caught my eye was NSA whistleblower reveals himself. And it was when Edward Snowden took accountability for the NSA leak.
Man, that guy's so cool.
I'm into Edward Snowden.
Guy's
I think he's maybe a
badass.
little weird about Russia. Is he a little weird about Russia?
Definitely.
But like that was a cool thing he did. Him and Chelsea Manning, I think they would get along.
Chelsea, yeah. I shipped them.
But dude, don't tell them anything.
Yeah,
don't tell them any secrets. I remember I was using Firefox on my I had a laptop that I thought, like I was an aspiring IT professional in a way that like I just wanted to be into computers.
Yeah,
I didn't know shit about how they worked, but I was definitely going to have WinRAR installed on that motherfucker, whether I needed it or not. And everyone says Firefox uses less resources and tracks you less. So I used Firefox, which had like these little news alerts when you'd boot it up. And I distinctly remember being horrified when it told me about the NSA. It was like, hey, here are some tools to see if you've been spied on, if your information has been sold to the fucking U.S. government. So my assumption is that I sought out information on that, and SourceFed would have been big enough at the time that like if I looked up NSA, Edward Snowden, whatever, it might have been close to the top. And like, I wonder who is actually in that video, because if it's a woman, there's no doubt in my mind.
You were like, oh shit, I learned, and it's a woman.
Best of both worlds.
It's the best of both worlds, man.
Hey, question.
Yes.
What do you think SourceFed means?
Oh, what do I think SourceFed means? I think this is going to sound pessimistic at first, but I think SourceFed itself as a conglomerate entity means failure. But I think that in the same way that Icarus failed in a way that taught us and created a legend, that SourceFed, the follies of SourceFed, what SourceFed could not do was the gaps were filled in by the sheer charisma and talent and beauty of these people behind it, and how hard they worked and how serious they were about trying to do something really cool and occasionally even really good and helpful. Because what they don't tell you is Icarus was laughing when he fell.
So, but like, why do you think it's called that?
Okay, shit. Well, I think, you know how BuzzFeed? I think it was going to be feed.
Okay.
because it's like your feed. And source, because it's like there'll be the source, right? But they don't even tell you their sources or anything. Like, they just kind of tell you shit.
I want to talk about the sources.
Are there sources?
Always. There's a citation in the description.
Okay,
Always.
I thought it might be in this description or something, but I did not look.
However, for some reason, they were too good to just put the link. So it was always like an aggregated bit.ly link.
Oh, my God.
Like just bit.ly / whatever. Those are all expired now.
So
if
they're
you
unusable.
They are literally empty sources.
So now they are the source. Now it's them.
Yeah. It comes from them first.
Do you think this was part of the plan?
No, I don't think there was any kind of
Foresight.
fucking what's it called when they make technology bad on purpose after a while?
Oh yeah, something obsolescence.
Yeah, forced obsolescence.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. You don't think that was part? I can see that though. Think about it, because then in the future you could have them always uploaded, right? And they could be a bank of information that people could really use as the source. They could become, at first they are just a vessel, but in the future they are the source. Because why the fuck would you do the links like that when you know they would expire?
I think it was more like you probably like pay for like an account that aggregates your links for you.
Oh,
and it just makes your shit look like prettier and easier. I don't actually.
You don't have a big weird messy link in your description.
Yeah, I don't know how like Bitly link aggregation specifically works. I know that a lot of times there are algorithms where you can shorten them. Like Amazon links can be shortened to literally a.co / the item ID, and that's all
I've seen
fucking
that.
need.
Yeah.
But like, if you're using a service like Bitly, which was a service, I think that what they do is they create like a proxy DNS kind of deal. Then you probably have to pay for that. So if SourceFed doesn't exist anymore, they're not paying for their link aggregation. But it's just gone. Like there's so many things I wanted to read about and can't find articles. And
there's nothing there.
Yeah. I did a deep dive into the meaning of SourceFed. And I've got a few answers, and I have a not so definitive, but closest I could get to definitive. So I asked Reddit, I asked r/SourceFed, which is a very active community.
Oh, really?
Surprisingly, yeah, people have stuck around on r/SourceFed.
That's kind of badass.
I asked them, and the prevailing theory there is that it means that the channel, are fed directly by their sources. So their news is credible. Like they are source-fed.
Tell that to the Orbis.
That's true about the Orbis. But like that's their idea, is that it's like source-fed is an adjective. Like they're being described.
That is clever, and I like that from a branding standpoint.
And beyond that, as a branding standpoint, Mr. Cool Mike on Reddit, user/Mr. Cool Mike, thinks it must be a play on ForceFed, which I like.
I guess so.
But
I
like,
definitely felt a
there's-
little bit force-fed in the endeavors that I was getting into.
But like, it's also, you know, that sound and that order of sounds is already kind of in your mouth. You know, like it gives you
I
something
didn't
to
notice that. Do we have a definitive answer? No, right?
No, but maybe.
Oh, okay.
So there was, and this is not the definitive answer. This is the funny answer. Someone asked in the Reddit AMA what SourceFed means, and this Reddit AMA was Joe, Steve, it was Joe, Lee, and Elliott officially, but Steve was also in there answering questions.
That's
even
great.
before he was an official member, which is funny.
That's very on brand.
But they were the ones answering questions. They'd be like, "Hey, Lee here, you know, whatever." Someone asked, and Elliott was the one to answer, and he says, "We are ourselves." This is a quote, direct quote. "We are ourselves sources of knowledge, humor, and unfiltered sexuality. As such, we feed you those things in small doses so as not to shock your system. Thus, upon watching any of our videos, you've been fed sources. You've been source fed." And then he says, "I just made all that up."
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you, Elliot. Holy shit. No, that's the
Elliott
canon
is
answer.
funny.
Elliot is so funny. Elliot is he's a different kind of funny than the rest of the crew in a way that makes him stand out in an interesting way. Not that he's like funnier than them. I think that's a little silly.
No, but he's funnier, like closer to our humor as people who were born too early to remember 9/11. You know?
Do you think it is just that he's younger than them? Do you think it's a little bit? He's like it's like how when you're a kid you can't watch old movies because like it's not just because it's old looking. It's like the visual language is different than modern movies. Like
I don't get
it's not the same thing. Yeah, but like. And there's so many shots of just a room for 4 seconds before somebody walks in, and you're like, "What the fuck are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? Hurry up!" You know, like, like I think, or do you think that it's just because like he's got a little bit of a, for lack of a better term, a quicker wit?
Yeah, he's got an edge that they don't have. That like they can't help. They're just a little older and not as in touch with the stupid things that are funny in 2012. You know. But I mentioned in my Reddit post that I think my theory is that it's as simple as they are the source of the news that is being fed to us. Not that there are other sources that they're feeding, but they're the source and they're feeding it to us. I got an answer from a guy named Trace Dominguez, who guest hosted a White Wall in 2015.
Okay, cool.
He is a fucking game journalist or something.
All right, interesting.
He says he asked Joe Bereta in 2015 what SourceFed means.
Bereta was still around in 15?
Mm-hmm.
I've started saying just the years, just the last part of the years.
We're getting there. We can call it.
We're getting there.
I'm comfortable with calling it like 22. You know,
22?
A couple years ago.
22
I did that
sounds
shit
good.
back in 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I was
10
at
years ago
22.
you said that? You're talking about the Great Depression.
Like, I didn't, for some reason, the timeline on when everybody comes and goes is sort of hazy for me. I'm surprised Joe was there. But what did Joe say?
Joe says, so Trace Dominguez says that Joe Bereta says that SourceFed means they are the source of the news that's being fed to us. And that's as close to a definitive answer as I could get.
Holy shit. Okay. Now, do we think that Joe also had to reverse engineer this answer? Like, do you think somebody told Joe, or do you think Joe was like, shit, yeah, what is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he's clever enough to come up with that and it makes sense and everything. And like, you know, Joe's got that confidence. He's an eloquent speaker. He makes silly faces.
I would believe him if he told a lie straight to my face.
I mean, that's part of being a father.
Oh, you're totally right. Holy shit.
Of course, you wouldn't know anything about that.
Why not?
No reason.
Joe Bereta left sometime in 2014. So
Okay.
I think that Trace Dominguez was like just around and happened to guest host a White Wall once. But I want to briefly shout out to user /noahnickel99 on Reddit, who provided me with a huge spreadsheet of every single permanent guest like every full-time guest when they started and when they stopped. That was extremely helpful. I just happened to find them on the subreddit, and they were very nice and provided that for me. This has been well over a year ago since they gave that to me, but I have used it significantly. And they also told me to send a link when it's done. So here I am over
wonderful.
a year ago, and I will send you that link. January 31st, 2023. So 14 months ago.
Yeah, that was a minute. That was a minute ago.
Yeah. But I wanted to shout out that particular individual. That's where I went to cross-reference to find out when Joe left. So
Wow. That's such a handy tool. Yeah. That's really badass of that person.
I have a closing segment. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that we say all the notes that we wanted to say.
I do want to talk about this. The line between Steve Zaragoza and someone like the Blockbuster Buster is razor thin.
So you've told me not to find out who the Blockbuster Buster is. So I'm ready for you to finally bestow that information on me.
Do you know who the Nostalgia Cricket is? The Nostalgia Critic.
I know the Nostalgia Critic.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like a whole 10 more years backwards internet-wise, right?
Okay.
Like, well, not a whole, you know what I mean. Like around 06. This is like pre-YouTube on thatguywiththeglasses.com.
Okay, so we're talking like 04, 03, 04.
Yeah. The Nostalgia Critic got big, and he is the titular guy with the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get somebody
James.
called... No, you're thinking of James Rolfe. You're thinking of AVGN. That guy with the glasses...
What's the Nostalgia Critic's name?
Doug Walker.
Doug, oh my God.
Yeah, Doug Walker.
Fuck, I do get their names confused, but yes. Doug. The Wall.
yeah, he wrote The Wall. That's that whole era of reviewing a movie but not really reviewing it. You're just kind of synopsizing the movie and screaming during during or in between clips of said movie. And I feel like that era of internet video entertainment, had it been able to keep its hold for longer, would have sucked Steve Zaragoza in. I don't know if he's even aware of that guy with the glasses. I don't even know if he knows who Doug Walker is. He might. He probably does. He's a very savvy guy. But, and I mean, it's a lot of nostalgia, for lack of a better term, nostalgia bait. It's a lot of, well, I'm going to review the Smurfs 3. And it's like, man, why? Like, what are we doing here? And the Blockbuster Buster is inspired by him. And he's this, like, kind of short, kind of chubby, kind of greasy-haired, black-haired motherfucker who runs around and reviews movies in the same way that Doug Walker used to do. And he was one of the last hosts to join that guy with the glasses back in, like, around this time. Yeah, so Steve and him are sort of parallels to each other in my mind, because I was occupying both spaces, that sort of old internet space and this sort of, early modern internet space, I guess I'll call it. And the Blockbuster Buster, like, he'll review a movie and then the movie will come to life and it'll fuck his wife or something and he'll have to fight it and kill it. Like stuff like that. Like surrealist, but in this almost mundane way, like just sort of like, oh, it's like Angry Video Game Nerd, but it's a movie kind of thing.
I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I think that had something like SourceFed not emerged, had something like this regrettably corporatized version of online entertainment that's like sort of bite-sized emerged, I think that we might not have gotten this version of Steve. I think we would get a sort of a Blockbuster Buster version of Steve. I think had SourceFed not been a thing, Steve would had to have put this creative energy somewhere.
Yeah, he may have just started the new movie thing show himself. Like just one guy rating movies on Ewok hugs.
I can totally see that. Yeah. And like, you know who Linkara is?
Yes.
You know Linkara? Oh my god. So it's like that whole version of an internet guy, the pre-2010s internet guy who's like Doctor Who and all this shit. You have like screaming and shitting on NES games internet guy.
Yeah.
And I do think that had it not been for larger media's influence on the internet, that would have lasted a lot longer. And I want to ask you, because that's what I think about Steve, right? That he would kind of become the blockbuster buster. And I think that these people are so charismatic and these people are so brilliant that they would have to have gone somewhere. They would have to have done something. Do you think this is true? And do you think they would have occupied other spaces? Like I could totally see Joe Bereta reviewing burgers in his car, like the report of the week, or like that guy that went damn. Do you remember that guy?
I love. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh my.
Oh my damn. Oh my goodness. They're going ham.
They're
I think the
going
Gregory
ham.
brothers did the remake of that. I think.
Really?
I'm pretty sure they did. And then the Gregory brothers, of course, showed up a little bit after the videos we watch. I think they show up in like 520 or something. But there's an episode where they show up and they harmonize, and it's like.
That's
weird.
I think that's in what we watched. I think
Oh,
that's
it is?
in what we watched. I couldn't finish that one. That one I thought was a little cringe.
It wasn't. It was hard for me. It was not easy. And I love the Gregory brothers. In fact, I used to have a huge crush on the female Gregory brother as a child.
That's so funny that there's a Lady Gregory brother. That's a good bit. I didn't know that until SourceFed.
That's badass. Yeah. You don't. I feel like you don't see her as much in their earlier stuff. I don't know about now if they're still doing stuff. Shmo yo ho accent.
Yeah, they
on
made the
yo.
Corn song.
They did.
The Corn was them. Yeah.
Wow. I love when they show. I love when a motherfucker like that comes back and they're like, "Yeah, you didn't know, but I did this thing."
Dude, I've been doing things in the background for a long fucking time.
I want to know what Mystery Guitar Man has been doing.
Oh my god, does he not do shit anymore?
I don't know. But there's no way he does it,
out.
right? Like these people disappear, but they never really do, you know?
He's doing like film scores now or something. He's working with Trent Reznor on the Soul soundtrack.
Wouldn't be surprised. Dude, did Trent Reznor do Soul?
Yes, he did.
So I feel like Steve becomes the blockbuster fuster. I feel like Joe reviews stuff in his car. I don't know what Lee would get up to, but I know it'd be something interesting. And I honestly think that maybe Lee would have benefited from SourceFed never existing. I don't know if that's just me being kind of a hater or what.
I think she may have, because I mean she was an aspiring actress, like that was her thing. You know,
Yeah.
It's easy to forget that like the way you got on at SourceFed was an audition. You showed up and you told jokes and
Yeah, I
acted
never
in
think
front
about
of-
that.
Like it wasn't people he knew. It wasn't a group of people he like already knew the comedic talents of. Or the
Yeah, they were
acting chops.
scoping for talent in LA.
And so, like, Lee has precedent in short films. I think she totally could have been like an indie film actress.
I'm surprised she wasn't.
Yeah, even on top of it all. And I mean, it doesn't seem like something she's
Yeah.
interested in now. You know,
Yeah,
I don't
not
know
really.
what she does now,
I think I follow her on Instagram.
but like, she seems to just kind of be chilling.
Yeah, whatever she's doing,
so-
she seems like she's doing all right.
Because that's kind of the thing, right? Is like, it's not that SourceFed didn't exist, but SourceFed doesn't exist anymore. So really,
Yeah.
they would probably just be doing, other than the things that they're allowed to do through their fame, like, you know, the podcasting that Steve and Joe and Elliott get to do. Like, I think they would be doing occupying a lot of the same spaces, just in different veins. I think that...
I feel like some of these spaces might not really exist in the capacity that they do, though, without SourceFed.
Yeah... One thing I wonder about is like how into, because like Trisha became their tech person after a while, and that's like her thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she
like
that
reviews
nerdy
tech
chick
shit
or-
and stuff, right?
yeah, but like that kind of started with SourceFed.
Is she called
And-
that nerdy chick?
At one point, she was, yeah.
That's also so that guy with the glasses, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
That's so Blockbuster Buster core.
If you look at like Meg's early videos, it's also like that. Like they really did occupy the same kind of spaces, but the difference was that like Doug ran his shit from home
Yeah.
on a website he hosted, and Phil ran his shit with YouTube money. You know, like that's ultimately kind of what it comes down to, is they're the same groups of people doing the same kind of thing, but like this side you have kind of freedom, and we don't have to appease any big conglomerates or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
And this side, I've got my grubby little fingers in every little thing you say or do. Do not take any stances. And if you fuck up, Keith Jordan, you will
You're
not
gone.
be invited back.
Yeah.
Well, I think that they would end up all kind of being, maybe not together, obviously, because they wouldn't have, most of them wouldn't have met each other.
Yeah.
But, like, I think they all would have ended up doing their own kind of, not necessarily that guy with the glasses, but like the nostalgia chick, you know, like they would all kind of be doing something on their own. And
I'm also like, given how big those people were, even into like, 2012, like I guess they had mostly moved from YouTube to that guy with the glasses only at that time, or I think there was another website that they had going on. But like, I'm surprised that there's not a level of intersection between that YouTuber field and this YouTuber field. And
I think
makes
it's just mostly location.
Probably. I don't know where the fuck those guys were based, but they would all get together for a movie a year. So like they weren't that far apart from each other.
They were flying out on that Doug money.
Yeah, the Doug money, man.
The Doug money. Those Doug pockets are deep and endless.
Deep and Endless was my nickname in high school.
That's true, because it was about your butthole that everyone saw into.
That was... You can't ape Steve's delivery like that.
What are you talking about? That was me. That was all me, baby.
Well, see, that's the thing. Can we talk about a little bit about how much our personalities come out of this? Like
all of mine.
I was doing an impression of Steve Zaragoza until I was 15, and that's because William Haynes showed up. And then I was like kind of doing both of them, and that's when I realized like it was specifically Steve and Will's Loot Crate video that made me realize I can be more than one person at once in a moment, you know, or maybe an amalgamate, maybe my own person even, God forbid.
I am still doing to this day an impression of Mike Falzone. I wish I was him so fucking bad.
He is so cool. Let's be real. He's so cool and so funny.
Like those people, all of them have always to this day, like witnessing what they do now, just total role models. Like they are what I want to be. I aspire to be those guys.
I think it's so remarkable how they managed to do something. They managed to literally inspire the two of us. And we are not the only ones. And despite all this fucking corporate chicanery, despite this constant, relentless, annoying, overblown white void that's constantly threatening to suck them in forever like it did Keith, they continued Navidson-like into the infinite house. They continued relentlessly. They were relentlessly funny and kind and like weird as fuck
until it worked.
Until it worked, and it got to working real good. Like I think SourceFed is a miracle. I think SourceFed is one of the the idea that people could be caught up in this bullshit machine and still manage to inspire and still manage to create in an interesting and innovative way when they could, anytime they got the chance, you know, fucking, they were doing, I mean, this is like years and years and years in the future, but like they were doing the D&D podcast idea before anybody else even was. Like so much of that shit is so cool. And I don't even understand how they managed to do it.
Dude, this is like SourceFed is how I found out what a podcast was. I don't know if I would be listening to or would have a podcast without the SourceFed podcast. I went back and re-listened to the SourceFed podcast about a year ago, like right before I think it was part of the reason we started discussing this.
I remember
it still holds up.
It's good shit. Have you seen the one where Steve is a chicken nugget?
Fuck yeah.
That's the best one. That's the most
that's
fucked up
so
one.
Fucking good. Dude. They really did, like, they made what so many things are what they are.
They did it, man. Like, they really managed to do it. It makes me so happy. I'm almost weeping right now. I can't believe it. I watched it all. I'm watching it happen in real time, and still I cannot believe what they've managed to do.
I don't know if you ever watched the, like, 8-hour-long final live stream that they did.
I didn't watch all of it. I watched the end.
It's on
I remember
YouTube.
catching the end when it was streamed.
It's on YouTube. Still, you can go back and watch it. I watched all of it recently, about a year ago. It makes me cry. Dude, it makes me fucking weep. But the term, the reason I bring it up is the term lightning in a bottle gets thrown around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's a better example of that in any media anywhere. Like, and it was lightning in a bottle for fucking 5+ years.
Yeah. To use a meme from its own contemporary lifespan, it was like a bee. A bee's wings are too small to get it off the little ground. But it can fly anyway. How can you explain a being like that?
User racial slurs on Reddit only has one comment on the entire website, and it's him or her on the SourceFed AMA telling them that they normally watch SourceFed on the toilet.
I think that was Joe Bereta.
I would like to share my list of notes of things that went nowhere.
That sounds wonderful.
I spent a lot of time trying to do investigative journalism for this fucking video, and not a single person wanted to engage with me except user noahnickel on Reddit and fucking Trace Dominguez.
And they really came through, to be real. They got us a
they
quote
did.
from
They
Joe.
both did great.
They got us an infographic. Those motherfuckers, man, they did great stuff. Everybody else, fuck you.
I reached out to two people who I trust most to tell me an honest, real answer to what SourceFed means.
Mm-hmm.
Phillip
And that was who?
DeFranco
Oh, yeah.
and William Haynes.
Uh-huh.
Did not
Nothing.
get a reply
Nothing.
from either of
Nothing
them.
from them. I'm surprised given what Willie Haynes is up to right now.
Dude, I know. You would think he's engaging like hell. But I sent him an
Maybe he's
Instagram
trying to beat
DM.
us to the punch.
Dude, holy shit. He's going to release the tell-all of what SourceFed means. Keith Jordan has a private Instagram account that I managed to locate. You cannot message a private Instagram account unless you follow them. He will not let me follow him. I've tried. So I can't get a statement from him on what that conversation was like. But Keith, if you're listening and you kept listening after I read all those comments about you, I would love to know.
Sorry, Keith. No hate to you,
Yeah,
Keith.
I'm sorry,
We love
Keith.
you.
No hate to Keith. I did say
America
you were the
N-word.
worst host. I'll admit that I said you were the worst host, but like you had some stiff competition, Keith.
And you never really got a fair shake.
That's true. I tried very hard to download the PhillipDee app and get it to work.
Oh my
I
God.
tried so fucking hard.
I love when they would mention the PhillipDee app.
Dude, that's crazy that he had his own. That's the Jeremy Renner app of old YouTube.
He's the Jeremy Renner of YouTube.
Holy shit, you're right. Dude, I wish he made some fucking shitty contemporary music like Jeremy Renner did.
I forgot.
Jeremy Renner, if you're
Renner
listening,
did that.
stop making fucking Imagine Dragons music.
And PhillipDee,
Jeremy.
if you're listening, start.
Dude, I want that shit so bad.
Please.
It's because the servers aren't live anymore, but I was just really hoping if I downloaded, like if I found the right APK and put it on the right version of antiquated Android,
That
Then
you would
I'd, like-
find something.
I'd at least get like a flashback of what like the last thing that was there before they canceled, you know, like they closed it down, or like I would get some kind of special error message with a goodbye, but I couldn't even get the app to open. I
Damn.
tried for probably days.
But you did get it on there, kind of.
I downloaded it, I just couldn't open it. Like I had a device that said PhillipDee app on it.
That's more than most people could say. I didn't know you got that.
That's true.
far. That's crazy. Do you have a screenshot of this or anything?
No, I think it was like an old like $40 tablet from 8 years ago that I dropped off at the dump recently. I like went and recycled all my old tech.
Keith
But-
picked it up.
Dude, Keith got it. He's getting
Keith
in
was
there.
there. They made him live in the dump after what happened. He lived there. He picked it up. Sorry, Keith. Don't listen anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Keith. I want you to come back.
Keith, don't look at the subreddit either. They hate your ass over there.
Oh my god, dude, don't even think about it.
I heard that he's the reason it ended. I heard it was because of Keith.
Oh yeah, he was the one. He went to the fucking like
He ascended the
Discovery, and he
ranks
was
of
like,
Discovery and he canceled that shit.
holy Holy shit. That would be the craziest fucking turn of events. That's why I can't find him anymore.
He doesn't want us to catch on. Yeah.
Every commentary starts with fan photo submissions.
Some of them are wild.
Some of them are crazy. Like, but it'll be like babies with SourceFed tattooed on their foreheads and shit. You know.
Yeah. Can we get a hold of that baby real quick?
Yeah. Let's see what that baby's up to now.
Call the baby. They named that. Elliott thought somebody named their baby SourceFed at some point, which I thought was really funny.
Really?
Yeah. He misread a comment. He was like, "My baby SourceFed." And he was like, "Whoa, chill out."
I watched every single one of those intentionally to see if I could find anyone notable, like maybe someone who became like a fucking Vine star or something. I did not recognize a single individual.
What about Chocolate Rain? He had a big video.
Yeah, but he wasn't at the beginning of the. That's a different Chocolate Rain.
It is. It's not the same guy.
Those are two different people.
But do you think Chocolate Rain? We could get Chocolate Rain on the podcast.
Dude, I'd love to get chocolate. Dude, if you are the guy, listen. If you're the guy
you're
from
Chocolate
the SourceFed,
Rain.
If you're Chocolate Rain from the SourceFed fucking
the new movie
club,
thing show,
whatever, the movie club movie thing show, who was always giving bad opinions about movies.
Yeah, he didn't like. What did he not like? Fucking something crazy.
Blade Runner.
Yeah. Annie. He hated Annie. He was like, too long.
That stupid little bitch. I would love to have a conversation with that man. Please, Chocolate Rain, if you're listening.
We're fans. He's a fan.
Chocolate Rain. I'm a big Chocolate Rain fan right now. And you could tell me what Tay Zonde's like. I know you two have spoken.
Some people laugh, but others feel the pain.
My final note. Per the following commentary, Supreme Court rules against FCC was said to be the 500th video, but as of now, it's the 486th. I tried tracking down the deleted ones, but the Wayback Machine wouldn't cooperate. They were probably all Curb Cash videos anyway.